Hard work and consistency. That's really what gets you what you want. Having something laid out for you so you have a game plan, and you're gonna probably most of the time get to the goal that you're looking for.
Even if your plan's not perfect.
Why personal training?
And I had this passion for personal training, learning how to take care of myself, how to dig through all of this information that's out there.
I got in a really bad car accident. Got hit on the freeway, crashed going 80 miles an hour. Woke up the next day in the hospital. Sitting there for a week in a bed really made me, reconsider my life. I decided, okay, I'm gonna recommit myself to, fitness, exercise, get back in shape.
I think there's a lot of pressure around women. I need to be very small. I need to know what I'm doing when I walk in a gym. There's a lot of messaging around like you have to look a specific way.
But when you're under so much stress and all those chemicals flowing through your body, you don't realize how much it's actually affecting your hormones, your mood, or your ability to have energy.
And that really goes into like one of the things we start with is breath. Breath is so important to everything.
But if you don't understand the intention of what you're doing, then it's going to be really tricky to figure it out.
So, I'm here talking to Kris and Kelsey, two personal trainers from San Francisco. I had to ask Kris, is it husband and wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, fiancés? How do I?
Fiancés.
Fiancés. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
How long?
Oh gosh, 6 months or so?
Yeah.
6 months?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Have you planned the wedding out?
We're working on it.
We haven't quite gotten
There's a lot
the
of moving
whole.
parts.
Yeah, there's so many moving parts.
We've looked
No,
at a
not
lot of
quite.
places, but we haven't really found something we like yet.
What are your thoughts on it? Are you thinking big wedding, small wedding, a church thing, and then that's it?
Oh, we're going small.
It's gonna be small.
Small?
Yeah.
Like-
We want like our most loved family and friends that are around us, around our relationship, around us to support us. And, we're throwing a party for them and for our love. And so it's going to be just like our most intimate people who really, I think, support our relationship.
That is so exciting to do that.
Yeah, we're gonna have one of my buddies as the officiant. One of our mutual friends is gonna be doing like a little opening meditation.
Yeah?
Yeah. So
Awesome.
we're trying to get everyone involved with it too.
I think that's the way a lot of people are going now. Like, it seems gone are the days of the big church wedding with inviting 200 people and then the whole catering thing. And it's now come down to like, let's just do some a little more with our closest friends and families. We're already together. We've been together for a while. We're just celebrating, making it official. It's more of a party than it is this
Right.
big transformation into adulthood that it kind of
Yes.
used to be.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well, and we've been together for 5 years, so basically we've made a lot of friends mutually. So
That's
it's like
awesome.
now being able to celebrate with all the people that have seen us together.
How'd you guys meet?
Ooh, good question.
Yeah, that is a great question.
We worked at a gym together.
Yeah?
So
Fitting.
Yeah, I always like to say it started as her not wanting to hire me.
It did. I was
really?
managing a fitness studio, and I interviewed Kris, and I was just kind of like, no, immediately no. And then our regional manager was like, no, he's super great. We're going to hire him on. He went to a different studio than me. And then she was like, okay, actually, we're going to put him in your studio. And I was like, yeah, no. And she did anyway. And then he was in the evenings and I was in the mornings. And she was like, oh, actually, we're going to put him on the same shift as you. And I was like, yeah, no, I don't think so. It was just like, no, the entire time. No, a lot of resistance. And then we became best
Yeah.
friends, and now we
just slowly
dated,
wore
and now
down.
we're engaged.
So you were the epitome of I just got to keep pushing and pushing and
Just
pushing.
erosion,
and eventually.
man. Yeah.
See, just working it that way.
But it also shows you that first impressions are not always true,
Yeah.
right?
That's
Well,
a good one.
Because
Also-
I got to know him, and he's great.
We had a really rough first impression though too, because there was a total miscommunication. I went in thinking it was going to be a workout. So this company actually you have to go in and work out, and then depending on how hard you worked, that's one of the things they look at if they want to hire you.
Really?
Yeah. So I thought I had already given my first interview with our regional manager, and so then when she sent me in, I thought I was coming in for a workout. So I showed
so my
up.
perspective is like basketball shorts, backwards hat,
came-
and
yeah.
I'm like, this isn't a
I
job
came in
interview. Like,
in
what are
like
you
a
doing?
cutoff-
dude?
Yeah, in a cutoff shirt and basketball shorts. And she looked at me like,
Yeah.
who is this stooge? You know?
Yeah, but it turned out great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. 5 years.
And then
Yeah.
what seems impossible is that we worked together there for a few years. We worked together then at Equinox for a few years. Very briefly, we worked separately. I went to Bay Club, and then COVID hit, so we were back working together again, which I feel like is a very uncommon story. Like,
Yeah.
we've just worked together since then up until now.
Well, yeah, we've worked together longer than we've been together.
Yes.
So it's something that we've gotten very comfortable doing.
That's crazy. That's actually such a great story to hear, that you start out as being co-work. Well, actually, it was coming in for a job.
And I mean, I had to listen to her. You know, she was my boss the whole time. So I mean, what she said went. So it was part of that is like getting over, you know, me always being right.
It's still that way.
We have that in recording.
Yes, it's going to be forever out there.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
you can definitely reference this and say,
I'll
remember
just
that one time that we talked?
Remember this? Remember this?
It's gonna be her ringtone.
I bet. So how many gyms did you work at before starting your current business now, which we'll get into in a second?
Ooh, so we worked at that gym together, The Perfect Workout, which was like kind of a smaller boutique one-on-one training, a lot of kind of older population demographic, which was a super cool place to start. Absolutely loved working there. And then we both went to Equinox. And then Kris stayed at Equinox for a longer period of time. I went and shifted over to Bay Club, and then COVID
happened.
And we had that like desire. We were talking a lot about like, we're going to start our own thing together at some point in the future, like in the far future. And then when that happened and they're just like, yeah, gyms are closed indefinitely. And we're like, the time is now.
Yeah, it put everything into warp drive.
Yes.
Like, and we didn't know what to do. Like, we both had been working 10 to 12 hours a day. So all of a sudden, you know, in the matter of a day,
oh my God, we're like,
we had nothing. We had nothing to do.
Like, we're not at work right now.
Wow.
Yeah. So we reached out to all of our clients, said this is the time, like, let's start making small goals that you guys can do at home. And we sent out an email, I think, the same day that the shutdown was.
Yeah, it was like very shortly after.
Within a couple hours, and just said, listen, you know, I know you guys are freaked out, but let's try to make something productive out of this.
Really, that's called getting on top of it right away. Seeing that we're not going to be back in the gym for, we don't even know how long. It was supposed to be 2 weeks, and then it turned into like
3 weeks at that time. We're like, well, don't just like basically freak out in your house for 3 weeks. Like, we feel like we might want to do. So like, it helped us because we got to focus on them. But this is like a service job. Like, we want to serve our clients, and we saw a need, right? Like, this is scary. They can't go to their gym. We are such a normalcy, like you have a standing appointment 2 or 3 times a week where we check in with each other. So we're like, well, let's not stop doing that, especially like when times are hard, like we were just talking about. That's when you take care of yourself the most. So it's not the time to let yourself slip on taking care of yourself, getting movement in, you know, anxiety, stress management, those kinds of things.
Yeah, it's one of the greatest stress relievers. So we figured at least if we have all of our clients moving around, they're going to feel a little bit better about everything else in their lives.
We'll talk about first the gym culture, especially with I guess more corporate gyms like your Equinoxes, 24-Hour Fitness, Crunches. Mm-hmm. How was the environment like for you as a personal trainer? Is it, I guess you're not working anymore. Maybe you could say a little more openly. Is this something that was conducive to you building the clientele that made you say, okay, I have all the support here I need? Or was it a limiting factor that made me say, you know what, I can do more as a business owner where I have my own training thing?
I mean, it was
I think both.
Yeah,
right?
it was trial by fire for sure. Like,
I think particularly, well, the first gym that we worked at, that boutique gym, like this is kind of like what we've gone back to a few times. Like, we really learned how to build connections with your clients, how to show up for them, how to reschedule, like those back end things that you kind of take for granted in a way. If you think like, I just want to train people, there's more to it than that. Yeah, unfortunately, there's emails, there's following up, there's sales, there's all of that. We learned a lot of that then.
Yeah, all the customer service stuff, I think we really got a footing on, and also getting really good at introductions. So there's an intro session where you have to get a lot of knowledge across, and you have to get them really excited and interested in wanting to do this.
And you have to learn about them, and you have to show that you care about them, which in our case, like, we do really care about them. So that part is one of the easier parts, I think, but there's just a lot of information in a short time.
And you do that all within an hour, right? Wow. So it's like introductions, going through, you know, all your philosophies, getting people moving, showing them what you do, and then also trying to sign them then and there is all done within that 1 hour. So I think that place really got us really good at understanding how to get our points across on why we're different than other people, and why we do what we do, and then getting them excited about wanting to do it themselves.
I like that, about putting the people first instead of just, here's the program, you know, do it and then whatnot. It's like, what is it that goes on somebody's head? So how did you both, if you have a similar story, why personal training? Where did that bug come from? Did you want to do something else in college and then, you know what, shifted, or was this always there?
Yeah, we both kind of have similar stories in that. I mean, you can...
Yeah, I actually went to culinary school for pastry and baking.
Awesome.
And I love to bake, and I just realized kind of going through those classes, it's a hobby that I enjoy, but it wasn't something that I was feeling like this like life, you know, light for. I was just kind of like, yeah, this is fun. And then kind of realized after doing it for a few years working in bakeries and the hours are crazy. And I actually had somebody that I worked under pull me aside and kind of said like, hey, you have to think about what you want your future to be. If you're working in restaurants, if you're working in pastry, then you are busy weekends, you're busy nights. Like, do you want to have a family? Do you want to have kids? Do you want to be available? So taking all of those things into consideration, I started really thinking about what did I want my future to look like? And I had this passion for personal training already, fitness, or myself kind of learning how to take care of myself, how to dig through all of this information that's out there. You could Google like how to get healthy and you'll have like 700 opposing things, like you should eat meat, you should not eat meat, right? Like you can have egg yolks, you don't have egg. Like there's just, I mean, different workouts, what's the best and how do you this and superfoods and whatever. So I realized that I already had this really heavy interest. I was already learning, really digging into that, and realized like I need to shift into this. And so I think that's like if you're talking about like the bug, it was kind of like realizing like, okay, I tried this thing I thought I was passionate about. It was kind of a flop for me as far as my enthusiasm for it. And then I realized like, this is what I'm already really interested in doing. And I wanted to know more about why don't we have an answer? Like, what is the answer? Why don't we have an answer that says like, this is how you stay healthy and take care of yourself?
It's like the multi-million-dollar or the $64 million question that we're like, what is this about? You have a similar story, Kris?
Yeah, I mean, I went to college for graphic design. So actually was an artist my whole life and also a basketball player. So was always an athlete. I got out of college, thinking I had my life planned out and got in a really bad car accident.
Oof.
I got hit on the freeway, crashed going 80 miles an hour, woke up the next day in the hospital.
Were you riding or was this in a car?
I was driving in the car and I got hit by another car headfirst in the cement barricade.
Oof. Is that here in the Bay Area?
Yeah, it was in Walnut Creek, Concord. Yeah,
geez.
good old 680.
Yeah.
And so from there, I didn't really take it well. I'd always had moving my body in athletics to kind of get out any emotional issues I had or to relieve stress. And not having that really kind of just started to put me in a depression. That accompanying with all the medications the doctors had put me on really started to kill any drive I had to do anything. So fast forward to a couple of years and I'm over 300 pounds, sitting on the couch, wasting space, and completely dependent on painkillers. And it was actually taking that whole process and having my body just start to shut down on me that I had to go back into the hospital. And sitting there for a week in a bed really made me, reconsider my life and what did I want to do with it, and did I want to just keep going down this road, or do I want to get back to where I used to be before? So going through all of that, I decided, okay, I'm going to recommit myself to fitness, exercise, get back in shape, and I thought I knew what I was doing because I'd had coaches and trainers my whole life, and realized I had no idea what I was doing. So it really took re-educating myself, going back, starting to learn what the real stuff was, and not just, the meathead or the bro science of like how to, how, just keep pushing, go harder, always go to failure, more is better. And learning that actually when you create a proper program and you take the proper recovery time and you really focus on all those parts of it, you can stay healthy while also making a lot of progress.
Wow.
And just fell in love with the whole process. And from there, I realized that I think I have more to give to other people by helping them in those same issues and getting out of injury and getting back to where they previously were.
That is so crazy. I mean, it's the unfortunate tragedy of having to be in a car accident, but it's funny how like it shifts your mindset to say, wow, there's so much more here that I can do. It's funny you brought up the whole painkiller thing. I mean, I was watching this I think it was called Dopesick. Did you see that on Netflix with the Sacklers and the Purdue Pharma and the opioids?
Exactly, and I was caught up right in that whole thing, basically.
Really?
Yeah.
Jeez, like how do you, like once you get into that, it's like, how do you get out of it?
It was tough. It took going to rehab 3 times.
Wow.
And not, my family not giving up on me, and really them being my biggest support. Like I realize there's so many people out there that don't have that system. And that's why they're on the streets or where they are now. Like I am so fortunate that I had a system and that was supportive and didn't give up on me. And by them not giving up on me, it helped me not being able to give up on myself. Yeah.
So what type of like broken bones did you have? Or?
So I have compression. I have compression in my lower spine. I chipped off a piece of bone in my neck. I broke my nose, my cheek, my wrist. There was a lot of stuff going on. I had a couple of broken ribs that were causing compression where, there was possibility they could puncture a lung. So I had a lot of stuff going on. And yeah, it took a while to get through all that. And then as I was getting healthy, I didn't have any doctors pushing me to, do physical therapy or to, start getting stronger in order to get rid of this pain. It was more of like, oh, you're still in pain, let's give you more stuff.
So that was really a thing, like in the documentary.
Totally.
It's like, you're in pain, take more of these, take more of this.
Every time I came in saying I now have more pain than I did before, they would just prescribe me more things. At one point, I think I was taking like 28 different pills a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the fact that this documentary is out is a cool thing that's like bringing up this conversation, right? Because there's a stigma around that.
Totally.
There's a stigma around sharing that, I feel. But like what you said is that you have a support system, and that when you maybe know or see or hear of somebody who is kind of caught up in this or stuck in that like lifestyle, you can maybe appreciate that they're just a normal person that got stuck in this bad situation, right? I think there's such a stigma like, oh,
no one's a bad
or
person.
that kind of thing.
Yeah,
right,
they're just in a bad situation. Exactly.
Or they don't have the support system to like help them get out of that.
And it's tough. It's really a difficult thing to be wrapped up in, and it's very hard to get out of it.
Now, when you were caught up in the middle of it, did
Yeah.
you feel yourself saying, I need help? Or you kind of had to get pushed to say, no, you need help. We're going to take you as a family and kind of get you out of it.
I think it really depends. It's, the mood you're in at the time. The higher you are, the less you care. But I think at the same time, like, there's times where you're down and you're out and you're like, man, I need to, get through this, and I need to get rid of doing all of this stuff. And then there's other times where you're just like, I don't care anymore. And so it's kind of that going back and forth. But once they start prescribing you more stuff, then you just start using more of that to just get rid of those other voices.
I think it speaks big to just have family and friends who know you, who weren't going to give up on you and say, no, we're going to get you right, Kris. We're going to just, I know you may come at us someday because you're just in that kind of a mood, but we're going to work, we're going to stick with you. We're going to get this right. And that's probably one of the biggest reasons why you've gotten out of it.
Oh, it's completely. I have to give so much up to my family for being so supportive. My dad drove me to outpatient every morning.
Wow.
To go and talk to my counselor and get my dose and taper off. And if I didn't have them there, it would have been a lot easier to just, not go one day or give up or, any of that stuff. And clearly, it didn't happen overnight, because it's not like even doing it once fixed it, right? And I think that's another thing I want a lot of people to understand is people usually don't get clean the first time. And it takes, having patience and really being there for people to know that eventually most people will. If you give people enough time, eventually they will be able to get out of that situation, but you just can't give up on them the first time. They're going to have to make a couple of mistakes first before they can really take a hold of it and be able to conquer that.
I think you hit it on the head there. And having a family who's going to stick by you is so important. But imagine being somebody on the streets who doesn't have family. It's like, how much can the government actually push you? Because at some point, it's like, if you're not going to do it, they're like, okay, well, if you're not going to do it, then, how can we help you with that?
Do you feel like it actually brought your family closer together going through?
Oh, I think completely. And that's the other stigma I think that we talk about is it's really, you don't want to admit that to anybody, especially, if you're a previous athlete or somebody that feels like, you've had so many good things going for you and people have been so proud of you. The last thing you want to do is then go to your, the people around you that care and have to admit something like that to them. Right.
Yeah.
And so then it becomes just bigger and bigger. And then, you start to swallow more of it and just, start to bottle that up inside. And then there's one thing that starts to get rid of those feelings, which is the last thing you should be doing. Right.
Exactly.
So it's like, and so you just get further and further down into that hole. And so the hardest thing is to rip that Band-Aid and just admit that you have an issue or you have a problem. But the minute that you do that, everything starts to get better. I was so scared of doing that. But once I was able to actually face that and just, man up to it, everybody was so understanding and caring and wanted to be there for me. And it was completely a different reaction than what I had anticipated.
Wow.
So, sometimes you just, even though it's scary, you just kind of have to go for it and just see if it's going to be different than how you pictured it going.
That's unbelievable. Like seeing you here now, and then knowing your business and how you're improving so many people's lives. It's amazing how many people might not think, can you imagine what this guy went through after a car accident? And then here he is now giving back to everybody else and the personal training spirit, making their lives better. It's so crazy to hear that. Because this went on for how many years where you were going through these ups and downs?
So the ups and downs was about 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I had always been underweight. So when my friends and family started seeing me and I ballooned up and looked like John Candy, like they started to get really worried about me.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, just again, family supporters, I can't say anything much more important than that. Family and friends who know you, who are willing to put in the time and the effort to help you get to where you're at and get you out of the hole that you're in. That's like, if we can get more of that out there for everybody who's having issues like what you were going through at the time, it would make the world so much better, because that support network is going to be there for you over, people who don't know you or the government system or whatnot, because they want to see you get better.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the other thing, is going through that process, you realize who's actually there for you and who's not. And it really helped me to make the decision of like, you don't need to have a bunch of acquaintances that aren't really your true friends. It's, if you have your core group, that's your tribe, that's who you need to stick with and who you need to take care of.
Exactly.
And if you take care of them, they take care of you.
Exactly. Wow. So 4 years, right? From the time that you got in the accident to the time that you were actually clean?
Yeah.
Wow.
It took almost 5. Yeah.
Almost 5 years. Okay.
Yeah.
So at that point, once you're out of that cycle there, is that when you got into personal training?
So the first thing I did was, one of the things that really helped me to stay clean was just running. So I started running, and I would run a couple miles that turned into, running 10 miles and then 20. And then I was at one point, I think I was running like over 100 miles a week.
Wow.
And it was, I joke, I was literally running away from my problems. And so I really use that time, just because if I'm on my feet and I'm out moving, it's time I can't be thinking about other things. It's time I can't be getting in trouble. It's time, I can't be relapsing or something like that. So I really use that to my advantage to just take up time. And it gave me a lot of time to think and a lot of time to kind of have a clear vision of what I wanted to do. And as I started to pick up strength training again, thinking like that was really what I needed to accompany that running with, that's when I really started to get hurt again. And I was also obviously running 100 miles a week and not focusing on recovery enough. Things started to break down on me there too. And so it was then starting to do some research, taking some kinesiology classes and kind of learning more about the body and what I hadn't learned going through, athletics my whole life.
Now, did you feel the pressure to say, okay, I have to do X, Y, and Z because that's what I'm supposed to do? Like, I have to be able to lift this much weight. I have to run this much. I have to do.
Totally. I had all the voices of my coaches in my head. So, more is better and push harder and, no pain, no gain. Pain is merely weakness leaving the body. All that stuff that I had been fed all those years was still in my head. So I was always overdoing it. I was pushing myself too hard and not giving myself enough recovery time. And that was one of the biggest things that I realized when I started switching up my training and my programming and started becoming a personal trainer, is realizing, like, you don't always have to go for it every single time. If you have a consistent program, you can be chipping away and making progress without every time making these huge gains that, you think that you need, or that you have to push yourself so hard that you're crawling out of the gym or you can't walk upstairs.
Yeah.
Like, that's not really a thing.
Exactly.
It's not how you're going to actually see the progress you're looking for. It's just that temporary feeling that makes you feel good, like you had a successful workout.
Yeah.
Right. But if you really have a successful program, every time you come in is not going to be, an epic, a glory of a workout. Right.
Yeah.
It's going to be you going in, you doing the things you need to do, getting it done, and then going on with your day.
I can speak from my personal experience. Maybe it's because I'm a guy, I don't know, but you kind of feel like if you don't get that next rep in, somehow you're failing. Yeah. And you have all your peers looking at you like, well, I can do 225. Why aren't you at that level yet? So you feel you got to push yourself more. Maybe it's the testosterone. Maybe it's just the
ego lifting. It's really we call it ego lifting, right?
Yeah.
And when you do that, there's a large chance you're going to get hurt at some point, because you don't care anymore about what you're trying to do. It's what everyone's watching you do.
Yeah. And you can get away with it more in your 20s because, you're like Gumby at that age. You can just do whatever you want, like a little bit of pain, no big deal.
Yeah.
I'm like, do you think that was really truth when you had your coaches telling you no pain, no gain, tough it out, walk it off, whatever? Was there ever any truth in that? Or maybe because we're so young at that age that it just seemed like it worked because no one got injured?
See, you're fine.
I fully believe that we got overworked to the point actually that we had injuries and that we were less strong as a team because we were working too hard. The only thing that we were the toughest at in the room was mentally tough. And obviously, I think you can make people mentally tough without putting them through all of that.
Yeah.
Right? I think that there's ways still to make people mentally tough and challenge them without them having to, not be able to, get up the next day.
Now, back when you were on the team, did guys talk about that? Like when the coach wasn't around, like to each other, like, hey, we're really driving this, man.
We still get together and talk about it and go like, can you believe we did that? Like there's
man.
times where why didn't we say anything back, or why didn't we say something, or like why did we even like put up with that? You know, why don't we say no, I'm not doing that today? But
Well,
it's the team mentality, and it's, you know, you don't want to let your brothers down.
Exactly. I mean, like Kelsey, did you have experience like that back in high school, college, just in the athletic part of it? Do you think it's different for women than it is for men, just in that pressure?
Oh gosh, is it different? Yeah, I think women face a lot of it. I mean, it's cool in a way, not that it's cool that anyone faces pressure, but to hear you describe like the pressure that men face when they're in the gym, or when, you know, you're lifting with ego because you want to impress people, or you feel like you have to show up in a certain kind of way. I feel like I'm really passionate about working in this field because of what women face, and I haven't always thought of it from a man's perspective, so it's kind of cool to hear that side of it too. I guess we all feel pressure when we go to the gym, right? Yeah. I feel like with a lot of, in my own experience and clients that I work with too, I feel like just going into the gym is like this world that is not familiar. And then there's all the guys doing all their ego lifting. And so there's like this little cardio, like safe cardio area where like you'll notice a lot of women will be in like the cardio, they'll be in the group fitness. They want like a buddy, or they just want to kind of stay maybe to the side and watch and figure it out. I feel like women are less likely to be willing to just like pick up a weight and try it. They want to understand why it's happening, versus maybe like, you know, if you're going in with your buddy and you're like, well, if he's doing 225, I'm just going to grab like 100 pounds and see what I can do, right? But I think that the pressure is more like, I need to be very small. I need to know what I'm doing when I walk in a gym. I need to, you know, I think there's kind of like a perfectionism around it. And I think there's a lot of messaging around like you have to look a specific way, that being fit has a particular look to it. And while those things aren't true, just like, you know, having to lift as heavy as you can just because is not true. I think there's a lot of pressure around women in those areas. You know,
it's funny because the gym that I was showing you, I go there like 5-6 times a week, and what you're describing, it's almost like clockwork. It usually happens. A lot of the women tend to go to the treadmill and the elliptical, and not a lot of them want to do weights. And the ones who do weights, you can tell they must have an athletic background then, because they're doing things in a way that, okay, if you were a tennis player, if you were a softball person, if you were a runner, you would know how to do that kind of activity. So they're just going back to what they actually know.
Right.
And I can see where, and tell me if I'm wrong with this, but you saw the size of the gym there. Like, imagine if you're a woman, you want to go lift weights, and you got all the guys around you. Does it make you feel uncomfortable? Either A, are they staring at me, or B, are they judging me because I can't lift as much, or am I doing it right? And then...
Yeah, I think that can be, definitely. I think if you learn how to strength train in a way that makes sense, and, you know, same for guys too. If you learn how to strength train in a way that makes sense with the weight that's appropriately challenging for you, it becomes less like, oh crap, am I doing this right? Like, does this look dumb? Or like, you know, what's really funny that we see a lot is you'll see somebody like kind of watching from a distance someone else do something, and then they'll kind of like go over there and try and like almost like mimic it. Like, it's like everybody in the gym is just trying to like figure it out. It's something that you could just like ask a coach for one session and they will teach you, but instead we're like, I want to pretend like I really know it, but I'm just gonna like look around and do what everyone else.
And they don't necessarily understand the intention of the exercises, right?
Yeah,
so it's
that's a big one.
Monkey see, monkey do, and so you could start to watch like that game of telephone where one person saw someone else do it, and then they watch that person, and by the time the fifth person is copying it from that last fourth person, they have no idea what the even purpose of the exercise is.
And that applies to like videos you watch on Instagram, workouts you see on YouTube, workouts in a magazine, right? You can see it and you can mimic it, but if you don't understand the intention of what you're doing, what muscles are supposed to be working, how should it feel, what does the form look like in your body, and how to scale it for yourself and your fitness level, then it's going to be really tricky to figure it out.
And we were talking about this before we actually started taping here. We were talking about how people find the right personal trainer, which I'm sure that we'll get into here.
Yeah.
It's crazy how if you put somebody who has the right body on there, whether they're on steroids or not, or whether they're anorexic or whatnot, if that person is doing a workout and you associate the workout with looking like that, you automatically trust everything they're actually saying without knowing for sure, okay, is that workout for me? Is that fit with my goals and what I want, with my body, with what I do in my life? And it's crazy how you can see how people manipulate that. Not everybody on YouTube is bad. Trust me, there's some good trainers out there.
Oh, there's some great ones.
A lot of
resources.
Exactly. Yeah. But then you see the other ones, and it's like, all right, I can take a step back and see the game that's playing here. Right. I know that person who's starting a workout. There's a famous guy who has a workout program. I probably shouldn't say his name on here, but you can see him in everyday life, and you see how like thin and still built that he actually is. And then when he does his workout program, all of a sudden he's super jacked up. Like, okay, I know you just took a bunch of steroids there, but seeing that guy do the workout and his program that he's demonstrating, you're like, oh, I can get that jacked by doing that.
Right.
That's all it takes.
Well, and that's one of the things we always find so funny is typically the workouts that they're showing that got them like that is the exact opposite of what actually got them like that.
That's not what you do.
Yeah.
To do that. And it's, like you kind of referenced this earlier too, like we're in a world of like clickbait now. And so, like you said, like honestly, if you look great and it's going to get you clients, like that's not the trainer's fault, but to a client, to a person looking for a trainer, like don't base it off of what they look like or what they eat. Cause like they're probably not showing you their full workouts to be real. They're just not. They're showing you the Instagram version or the YouTube version or whatever that they're putting out there. And it's just not like a accurate business card. If you want to look like them, if you ate exactly like them and you did their exact same workouts, you're not going to look like them. That's just how genetics are. You have to have their parents if you want to look like them.
Remember those old Bowflex commercials at night? You're like, oh, that guy, that's what I need. I need the Bowflex so I can look like that.
Or that crazy elliptical thing.
All these crazy ones that came out back in the 90s.
But they're all coming back around again.
I guess.
It's every few years people forget about that stuff that they threw in their garage and they forgot about, and then they're able to kind of just reinvent the wheel, throw it back out there. And then someone else is, big on the next big piece of equipment that is going to take over and revolutionize their life.
I mean, it's amazing how just the business side of it, I get. It's like, that's a moneymaker right there. I know it, you know it. And if you put that out there and you put it like, it's like a better mousetrap, people are going to see like, oh, I can get skinny by doing that. I can get ripped by doing that.
Well, and if I just spend money, that's going to give me the results that I want.
Yes.
Right? If I throw enough money at it, then all of a sudden my life is going to change. Right? Mm-hmm. And just because you get a new piece of equipment doesn't mean that's going to change any habits in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think like there's something to be said where it's like, if that, whatever it is, if that gadget is going to get you moving, by all means. If that's the one thing that you're like, okay, whatever this is so exciting for me, I'm going to do it, great. Like moving that's medicine. The goal, right? Moving is what we're designed to do. If that's what makes you do it, that's awesome. But I think, like you said, like sometimes it's just kind of like, oh, I'm committed because I'm purchasing something. So you could probably ask yourself instead, like, instead of buying this ab crunch machine, could I do like one plank every day for 1 minute? You're right. There might be a different thing you could approach that same exact
or could I spend
idea
a lot less money on a body weight program that I could actually stick to, that I'll probably see a lot more results on than whatever this piece of equipment that I just got.
Which inevitably won't be a coat rack or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Something as simple as that. What's funny about those machines that we were just talking about there, like, you guys have been working out every day. Probably that's your whole business. And for people that work out a lot, you might see that gimmick a machine and say, why would you spend $200 on that? You're not going to get the results you want. But on the flip side, like you were saying, well, if this is somebody who's sedentary, they don't do anything at all, and this is going to get them to move, then actually, you know what? Hey, by all means, more power to you.
Exactly.
You may have come to the conclusion that, I'm not going to get a ripped six-pack, 3% body fat body by doing that, but it's getting me moving. And you know what? That's a step in the right direction, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, and for every single person, it depends, right? We're on a scale. So, like you said, depending on their level of movement now, just a little bit could be moving the needle in a huge direction for them.
Exactly.
Right?
And I've noticed this with a lot of the programs that I've seen in general. I realize how, and I do it too. I'm just as guilty. We pay for convenience. We're like, if somebody can tell us that if I give you money, that this is going to take all that time, like the magic fat loss pill, and that's going to make me look like the body of my dreams, then I'll just keep paying that. Right. And then even if it worked, a lot of people just don't stick to it, especially if you give them a program that's like, okay, follow this 100-page book and you'll get the body of your dreams. They'll go through 2 pages and say, no, I'm not doing the rest of that.
We do that with clients when they talk about weight loss or muscle gain or anything like that. We'll sit down and just lay out exactly how many weeks this is going to take, and then go, are you willing to commit to this? And when they look at it, sometimes they go, no, never mind. Like that's too much work.
Now, how do you break through that barrier? Or do you even try? You're just like, okay, they're just not the client for me. Or do you say, no, I'm going to get this through your head so you understand, because I know you want this result. How do you balance that?
Start biting off smaller goals. We don't have to look at that big stretch goal for now. Let's keep something a little bit smaller that they can actually see themselves accomplish. And I mean, that is huge. If someone can actually set something out, accomplish it, all of a sudden they get way more motivated for their next goal. So you just
Short-term.
keep taking these little short-term goals, let them taking in small bites, and the small bites they take all of a sudden equates to a really large amount. And then they look back and realize how much they've really done, and it just keeps driving them in the right direction.
Right. And I think that would be one of the bigger shifts, like in that scenario that we try to get across, because unfortunately we all want the magic pill. We all want it. But if it was out there, we'd know, right? We would know. Like
By
no one
now,
has it and they're keeping it a secret and you just found out because of this targeted Instagram ad. Like that's not real. It's marketing.
Well, and I think that is the real secret, is that there isn't any secret.
The real secret is there's no
You
secret.
have to
I
work
love it.
hard. You
It's
have to
hard
figure
work
it out for
and-
your own body.
Hard work and consistency. That's really what gets you what you want. And having something that is actually laid out for you, so you have a game plan and a strategy going in. You have that mixed with consistency, and you're going to probably most of the time get to the goal that you're looking for.
Even if your like plan's not perfect, right? I think we get so stuck in like that perfectionism. But I think that's
perfect
Make
exercises
it
or the
easy.
perfect movement, or
Don't make it perfect, make it easy. Make it easy to do over and over again.
So what do you think has been, over your time as being a personal trainer in other gyms and currently in your business now, what's been what's been the biggest excuse that you've heard why someone can't do it?
One of my favorites is I'm not in good enough shape yet to go to the gym. Which then I'm like, well, how are you going to get there?
Where will you do it then?
Where are you going to do it then? like people get so in their heads about, oh, I don't want to go in looking overweight to a gym because everyone is so beautiful looking and in such good shape that I'm going to get made fun of. So I need to do some program at home or something where I can get like jacked before I go in. And so the first time I go into the gym, people are looking at me like an Adonis. And it's like, well, how is that ever going to happen, right? And I think people get so caught up in their thoughts that they don't even see the logic behind that. It doesn't make any sense, right? It's like the only way you're going to get in better shape is if you get in there and start doing it. And everybody's got to start somewhere. So it's like they have these big grandiose plans of how I want to look when I start versus just start chipping away at it today.
Exactly. So when you take on a new client, you obviously give them a work, you pretty much have an interview with them. You know, like, hey, here's who we are, what we do, what are your goals, what do you want out of the program? Do you just focus on the physical stuff, or do you go full blown with like the nutrition plan, recovery, all that stuff?
Whole holistic approach.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh,
We're nutrition certified, and we work on habit coaching because a lot of times that's the thing that's getting in the client's way. Right?
Have you seen that documentary called Heal or Healed?
No.
It's on, I think it's Amazon or Hulu, one of the two. They were basically talking about how probably the 90 some odd % of the people who go into the emergency room, it's all because of chronic diseases like, the heart attack or the diabetes. Very rarely is it the traumatic car accident or an accident at the factory where you lose a finger. It's mostly chronic diseases. And they say most of that starts with stress. And it's amazing how much stress actually impacts our lives in ways we can't see, because we would know if our finger gets cut off, oh yeah, it's bleeding, something's going to happen. But when you're under so much stress and all those chemicals flowing through your body over time because you can't see it, you don't realize how much it's actually affecting your hormones, your mood, or your ability to have energy.
Yeah, and that really goes into like one of the things we start with is breath. Breath is so important to everything everybody does through their day. Right. And you
I just realized that now. I even breathe during that.
Exactly. And I mean, that gets back to most people during their day. I mean, most people are sitting in a chair now at a desk. So they're already kind of closing off their diaphragm. And then they're panicked all day. So they're taking these small, shallow breaths right in their upper chest. That's going to keep them in a sympathetic state all day. So basically, even though they're sitting there not doing anything, their body wants to run or fight. Right? And so then we deal with even more stress because we're basically fighting what our body actually naturally wants to do and force ourselves to sit there and stare at a laptop. And so, we get these clients coming in and they're already so revved up from the rest of their day. They come in and they want to do everything, a mile a minute. And they're not thinking about what they're doing, and they're not being thoughtful with their actions. So a lot of the times, the first thing we'll do is actually take someone down on the ground, have them start breathing, and get them back into that parasympathetic state, right? That rest and digest. And all of a sudden you get someone breathing properly again, and they really start to shed a lot of that stress right away. and they can start to actually refocus and think about the things that they're really wanting to do.
Now I got to ask you about that because, and you can read first impressions there. When you do that to your first client, do you ever get anybody that's like, wait a minute, this isn't what I signed up for? And you can see that.
Completely. Someone's thinking they're going to come in and start just throwing weights around.
Yeah, or do some bicep curls or something.
No, and the first thing I'll say is take off your shoes, lay down on the ground, and we're going to start breathing. And it is kind of a shock for some people, but the people that stick around with us realize that we're just trying to do it the way that actually is going to work versus the way that they think it's going to work.
Right. I feel like there's categories, like there's the perpetuating the myths of the fitness industry type of training. And then there's like, we really want to dig in and get into like what is really going to make you healthy, what's going on, because there's a lot of factors that are going to play into your health, not just a workout, right? And of course we work them out, we get there, but
exactly.
But to that point, like you're saying, like most people I think are kind of surprised, like, so I'm gonna just breathe, and you're like, yeah, just keep breathing. Just lay there and breathe. It's okay.
How much does this cost me to breathe? Like, wait a minute, I didn't.
Well, and that gets into, I think, the same thing of those trainers you're talking about, right? That are basically using their body as a business card. A lot of times, they also then just take the misconceptions in the industry and they just keep feeding them out there,
which
right?
is not really.
It's the easier
healthy
way. It's not healthy, but it's definitely the easier way that you're going to get clickbait. You're going to get people interested because. If people already have all these misconceptions out there and you just tell them, no, you're actually right, that is true, of course they're going to want to believe that, right? They're not going to want to believe that, oh, no, the thing you've been thinking this whole time that's been setting you back is actually completely wrong and you don't need to do that, right? Or like, being muscle bound, right? Like women lifting heavy, that's going to make them these big, buff, manly looking women, right?
It's a common
thing we hear constantly is like, women say, I don't want to lift weights.
Bulky.
And what they don't realize is actually lifting heavy and not doing that high rep stuff, which is actually hypertrophy, which is the stuff that's going to build you muscle, but they're not eating enough calories in the first place to even ever get that big, right? Is kind of the difference, I think, that trying to get through to them that, listen, I like to use the analogy that I'm like, if you get in your car and go driving, you're not worried that all of a sudden you're going to turn into a professional race car driver, right? Mm-hmm. If you cook food at home for yourself, like you're not scared that if I cook this meal, I might become a professional chef. But women do one workout and they think they're going to become a professional bodybuilder. And it's like, do you not see how much time and effort someone has put into that to get to where they are, that all of a sudden you think just lifting, one dumbbell is going to just get you huge?
Now I want to ask you your opinion on that, Kelsey. But before I get there, I got to say, to kind of give the devil his due, I've seen personal trainers do that where they're like, you know what, somebody comes to me, whether because of my profile or the way I look, and they think that, okay, they're going to get the body of their dreams coming to me. I know what it takes to get them there, like the approach that you're taking.
Exactly.
But how about I make them feel good and I give them encouragement and I have them do a little bit of weights that are really not going to get them to their goal, but they feel good when they leave. So I'm making my client feel better, even though they're not really doing anything. There was somebody in a friend of mine, she was telling me about somebody that used to do a lot of clients back and forth, but he would not do the best job in the world. And I said, well, why is he getting business? She says, I don't really know. And I said, well, what does he tell his clients? She's like, he's always telling them how they look good. He makes them feel good. I'm like, well, that's what they're paying for. They're paying for him to make them feel good, regardless of if the job he's doing is actually top notch or not. They feel good, so they win, and the person wins. Yeah. And I see that with some of the trainers as well.
As long as that's the contract going into it.
Yes,
right? As
exactly.
long as the person knows they're not, or they don't care if they get that many results, they just want to go in feeling good. Great, go in and get that fast food. Get that sugary, confection that just, it's not necessarily what's really good for you, but it makes you feel good at the time. Mm-hmm. Right? But over time, if they're not seeing results, they're probably still not going to feel as good as they possibly could or as confident as they could.
What's your opinion, Kelsey?
I say, why choose? Why can't you feel good and get results, right? I mean, that's like, I really want my clients to feel good, but also like, if they're not doing something like in the right way, I also want them to know like, hey, you're not doing that in the right way, right? I mean, we've always said like there's coaches and there's cheerleaders, and we're coaches. Like we want to coach you, and that includes like sleep and stress and food and all of those variables, and the way that you talk to yourself and the way that you feel about yourself. But I do think, like to your point, that there are sometimes trainers, and I think it's with experience, I think it's just working with clients over time. I would guess that, well, I guess I can't speak for everyone, but I would hope that there's not many trainers that are like, I don't really care if my clients get results, right? That's part of, like, that's what you're doing. That's is like, my clients have to get results. If they're not getting results, what the heck are we doing? But with the feel-good stuff in there too, and the de-stressing with the breath work, and making sure they understand why they're doing it, and looking at other habits that might be negating the time that they're putting in the gym. If you're getting 3 hours of sleep every night, but then you spend 2 hours in the gym, it's not going to do anything for you, right? So I feel like there is a balance of, like, I need you to understand how our bodies actually work from a scientific standpoint, and what kind of stimulus you need to give it to get the right response. But I also want to hype you the F up and make you feel great. And, like, I think a lot of that is, like, just reminding them. It's so easy to forget, like, where you started when you came in. Like, I'm always reminding my clients, like, do you remember when that 25-pound dumbbell and this movement was hard, and now you're doing 50 pounds and it's easy? And, like, you know, just those little things, I think it makes a huge difference, because we forget. We stay in the negative in our brain, right? Like, our brains are almost designed to look at the negative from our, like, primal, you know, place that we come from. And so reminding them, like, yes, this was a hard workout today, but remember when you were just doing like 10 pounds and it was killing you, and now we're all the way over here, and those things are important. This is what I love about the way that you guys do your business. It starts with the holistic approach. It's starting out, the fact that you started with breathing, and how you build the foundation of the house here, and how that's going to affect the person later on when you get into the more heavier extreme workouts. That this part that we started out with here builds up to here, and convincing your clients to see that early on and see the progress and the build in. It's so powerful, because it's hard to find that. Now, for example, most people think, or a lot of people think, if I want a personal trainer, though, that means I got to get a 24-hour gym membership, and they have trainers there, and I'll find somebody. But you guys have been on both sides of that. I'm sure that there's a part of the trainer side where you got to make numbers. You got to get clients in there.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we used to have to work so many hours, because the big box gyms, they take a lot off the top.
Yes.
And then they expect you to hit certain numbers, and if you don't, you're probably going to make half of what you were expecting you were going to make.
So how often did you guys see, and I'm sure there were good trainers, absolutely, there were good trainers in the main gym, but what percentage would you say were people who were like, I got to make numbers, so I'm going to make the person feel good just to keep them coming back for more, whether they actually got the results they want or not is not my concern, but I just need to keep that train. I got a job, I got bills to pay. Yeah,
I mean, I think it depends really, because like for Equinox, for instance, they have a great education program. I think it's very beneficial. They always say that that's like the last place you go before your jumping off point to go private. And I think the reason they say that is because it really gives you a great foundation. I mean, they put you through classes. They're always trying to make sure you're better. But on top of that, you are having to hit those numbers. So you're taking everything that you learn, and then you're going in and, you know, training 10 clients in a row with all that knowledge that you just acquired. And so it really kind of cements and concretes in all that information. So, I mean, you're not going to always make what you want to start, but I think that knowledge base is worth the price.
Does it? Because for those of you that don't know, because really Equinox is big here, LA and New York, the rest of the country doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
Equinox is a premium gym that they charge a lot of money for their clients.
And it's partially because of how nice and clean.
Yes.
And they have one of the best cleaning staffs of any gyms in the nation. So
yeah, you walk in, it's like a palace. Like, this is a gym. This is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But with that, you know, it attracts a certain level of clientele that can actually afford that.
Yeah.
So the clientele that's going in there and they're spending all this money on the membership fees, whatever. Do you see a difference in that clientele's motivation, than maybe if you were like working at Planet Fitness or at 24 Hour? Does that have a factor?
It really comes person to person. I mean, wouldn't you say? There's some people that, you know, have a ton of money and they're like, oh, who cares? I'll cancel that session today. I don't care. It's, you know, to me, that's not a lot of money. And then there's other people that make way more than they do, but they're like, I'm never going to miss a session because I held myself to be accountable for this.
That's crazy. They're going to spend a couple $100 and say, nah, I missed it, whatever.
It happens all the time, or they blow through a whole package of sessions and they made it maybe 3 or 4 times out of 12.
Wow. I mean, from a business side of it, I'm sure that factors into Equinox's equation. Like, how many people just are not going to show up, and they're like, well, you know, I mean, if you don't show up, you don't show up, and people are familiar with that.
Yeah, or we had a lot of clients too that always be like, you know, why am I paying membership when the only time I come here is to work with you? You know, so that was another big thing that I think we were looking fortunate to being able to do this on our own, because then we didn't even have that barrier in the way, right? You know, you don't have to spend all this money for a gym that you're never going to go to. Like,
exactly.
Just work with us.
Exactly. So how big is the nutrition side of it when it comes to building your program for your clientele?
I mean, it depends on the client's goals, right? Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. And I would say, like, as far as nutrition goes, we're looking at habits.
Right.
Like we're looking at like, what are you currently doing and what one thing can we implement in your life that's going to be easy to repeat and it's going to start to make a big difference for you. So we're not like giving out a meal plan.
Okay.
We're just saying like, what are you doing? Okay, you're drinking 2 glasses of wine every night. Can we make it 1? Or you're not drinking any water during the day. Can we start to increase your water intake?
So it's tracking all of their habits and just seeing how those all play into their daily life and just, doing a small piece so we can just start moving it towards what we're looking for.
So what does a typical client say to you in terms of their goals? Do people say, I want to look like this person here, or I just want to fit my clothes from high school? How do people word that to you where you have to interpret, okay, this is what they actually want?
I mean, sometimes it's interesting because I get that half the time, but then the other half of the time I go, so after talking about kind of what they're looking for and everything like that, I say, so what's your goal? They have no idea. I think they've been thinking about it for so long in their head that it all makes sense up there, but once they actually have to vocalize it, they're like, I don't really know. And so for a lot of the clients I start with, I say, listen, you know what? It doesn't have to be anything huge right now. Let's do something small. Let's work on some small goal. And then over the next few weeks, I start getting you moving and we go through these different foundational movements. Start seeing if there's something you like or something that you realize you're not good at or, something that you would like to get better at. And then we can start focusing on that being the goal. Because I think a lot of times, clients come in with obviously their aesthetic goals, but they really have no idea what they're functionally capable of. So when you start saying, well, what's your functional goal? What do you want to be able to, do? Is there a certain amount of weight you want to lift? Or do you want to do, push-ups or pull-ups? Or is there something you currently can't do that you would like to? It's almost too big a question for them.
Now, do you guys focus on, like, do you train mostly men? Do you train mostly women? Or you kind of just go back and forth? Who's the next client on our list? Do you guys do that?
It's who comes to each of us.
Yeah, we kind of are, I think, really lucky in the sense that we don't do a lot of marketing. We're really word of mouth. We're like out on Instagram and we just take care of our clients and they end up taking care of us back. And so I think it ends up being, I happen to train mostly women. I think you have like a nice mix of both. I feel like in the fitness industry and particularly with personal training, like women are more likely to want to work with a female personal trainer. I have had like men that I will do a first session with that like will be honest and say like, I don't want a woman to tell me what to do. And I'm like, you know what?
They're honest.
I'm like, you, like the self-awareness is on point. I feel like that's kind of a part of it. I also want to say that women maybe ask for help more. They're more willing to say like, I really don't know what I'm doing here. I want some help with that.
But then you also get the female clients to say like, oh, I don't want a man judging me or something like
totally.
that. So
I
then
mean,
it
does depend.
Gotcha.
It does depend,
right?
Sure.
So it kind of goes back and forth between the clients.
Do you ever sort of push, like you may get a female client, you're like, you know what, I think you're going to be better working with Kelsey. Let me introduce you to her, and vice versa. Do you get a male client where you're like, or a female client where you're like, you know what, I think Kris is going to be better for you?
Yeah, sometimes like particularly because you know we heard that Kris has back injuries. He's rehabbed a lot of like very serious injuries. So if I ever come across somebody, whether male or female, but like maybe former athlete who got injured, something similar to what he's experienced, he's like the walking billboard for how amazing strength training is when it comes to alleviating pain.
Wow.
And so like I know he shared with me a lot of the time, and this is why like I'll highly recommend him for those clients that come to me, because he can instill so much confidence with his story. They'll start to say, hey, I have this, back problem or this and that, and he's like, yeah, me too. And I think it just makes them feel safe, like, wow, you understand what I'm going through right now and you've been able to get past it. And so like those are the kind of clients that I'm like, yes, like Kris, that's all you. And I feel like my background, I am not from an athletic background. I did show choir and I did like tennis in high school and didn't really, it was just like for fun.
Hayward?
In Newark.
Yeah.
I went to Mount Eden in Hayward. I thought you meant
I
Tennessee.
I was gonna ask you honestly. I was gonna ask you if you were from the Bay originally. You grew up
Yes,
in
I'm from
Hayward?
Hayward. Yes,
Nice.
originally.
Nice, great
It's
place.
I mean, different environment now than what it was when I was growing up as a kid. But yeah, Hayward, born and through. One thing I have a lot of female listeners on this show. And I know a big challenge with a lot of them is like what we were talking about earlier. I want to get in better shape, but I don't want to get big. I don't want to get bulky, or I have this body type where I have big shoulders. And if I go do shoulder presses. I'm going to get these huge, like,
big
Thor
old traps. And,
exactly. And they're so afraid of it that they just end up going on the treadmill and like, I'll just run 20 miles and then I'll get super skinny and then everybody will appreciate it.
Or I'll just not eat any food. And
exactly. And we all know that that's not the right way to do it, but it's a barrier. So like, what are some of your strategies to break through that barrier with women specifically who are like, I just don't want to get big. I want to feel good about my body without being like on steroids.
Right. I think I definitely think it's something to address immediately. Like, I don't want them to entertain that thought in their head any longer than they have already for their lifetime. I think that there's been a history of women being told to eat very little and to move a lot and to do a lot of cardio. And that's, I mean, no matter what your goal is, it's going to make you tired. It's going to make you hangry. And it's not going to do a lot. Like, maybe you will get very small, but at what cost and why? So you're very small, but you have no muscle mass on your body. So you're not going to have a lot of energy. And it's not going to, like, we're talking about feeling good. That's not going to feel good. Like, being as small as possible by any means necessary, that feels very bad. That feels horrible.
Well, and how dramatic an effect it can have on your metabolism too.
Yes.
Right? Because
like women
they can get away with it in their 20s,
right.
But then we deal with women in their 50s, 60s, 70s that have been doing that their whole lives, and now their metabolism just is completely out of whack.
Out of whack,
wow.
Totally. Or even at younger ages, 30, 40-year-old women that will come to me and they're like, I haven't had a period and I can't remember how long. So for a woman, that's going to be like our window, and there could be underlying causes for that, but if we're on an extreme caloric deficit or overtraining, then that is a side effect that can happen. So this is kind of like a red flag. Okay, what are your habits? What are we doing? We can like kind of dig into your hormonal health. This is a side of it too, right? We don't exist like in isolation. Our body is a whole system and all of it matters. So I think when it comes to like getting big and bulky, yes, a lot of people you see that are big and bulky, like maybe they're taking other supplements or they're eating a ton of food to be able to get this much muscle on them. The way that I shift it is I'll say, like, can you describe what you would want your body to look like? Okay, let's move to the side. Great. You maybe don't want to lift weights. Let's just talk about what do you want to look like? And if they're describing like, I want a big butt, I want a small waist. This is like very popular right now, right?
Yes.
Everybody wants a big butt, a small waist. I want my arms to look toned. And
that word toned, man.
Toned. And so then I try
right?
so then I just tell them like, amazing. Okay, you want a bigger butt. That's the key word, bigger. Where is it going to come from? If we're not eating any food, it's just going to inflate. Like, I kind of say it like this as a joke to them so they can understand, like, can you see how it doesn't really make sense? Like, we can't have a bigger anything if we're not eating enough food, and if we're strength training and we're afraid of getting bigger, how can we get bigger in certain areas you want to get bigger? So I think it's like just educating, just telling them like, hey, I hear you, and we're not going to make you big and bulky. If at any time you feel really bulky, like let me know and we can troubleshoot what's going on.
Exactly.
I think just telling them like, listen, even like smaller weights, like yes, food, but also learning how to hold your posture, learning how to hold your core engaged, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of variables. I think that strength training, like it is the way to go rather than focus on weight loss. If you're focusing on lifting weights and maybe losing body fat, totally, but not just number on a scale going down, because you could weigh the same and look completely different. We've seen it many, many, many times with our clients. They'll lose like 20 inches and the scale says the same thing because they've added muscle while they're losing body fat. They look totally different. The scale's exactly the same. So maybe the scale's not as important of a factor as we think it is.
Right.
Yeah, and there's another huge misnomer, which is you can target body fat.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how many advertisements,
I just want to get rid of just this right here.
Like, oh, I just want to come in and can we just get rid of the fat like right here? And I'm like, it's like taking a cup and trying to bail water out of a pool, right? You're not going to bail water out of just that little area of the pool. The whole level of the pool is going to go down at an equal rate. And so even though we can store and add body fat in different areas, as we're losing that fat, we really just have to focus on letting it happen gradually over the entire body, not just one particular area.
Right. That's been so you were talking earlier about the body type. So if somebody comes to you and says, I want to look like Kate Moss or whatever, and you're looking like, okay, you don't have her body type. Do you have to just address that right away, or do you sort of explain to them over time that, you can look good the way you are? How about we have this person here who actually has your body type, and, how do you word that?
I think we have different approaches.
I was going to say, I really want to hear what you say, actually.
Yeah, I do too.
I make it like very simple and straightforward. I don't care who you say you want to look like. I just say, we're going to make you look like a healthier version of you. You're going to look like you. I mean, I can't make you look like somebody who's not you, but we're going to look like the best, healthiest version of you. And is that okay? You know, ask them, does that sound good? 9 times out of 10, I'm sure they'll be like, yes. And maybe that 1 time out of 10, they're like, okay, maybe I'll go to like a plastic surgeon or something if you want to change like your face and body and all of that. But like, as far as this goes with strength training, health, let's appreciate you, right? Let's not try and put a focus on an outside person and maybe this photo is photoshopped.
Oh yeah.
Right? I mean, do you think this is just they just got out of bed and someone snapped that picture of them? Like, this is a highly edited, highly curated photo.
I saw that face feature. I'm like, wow, this is the person with that.
Oh my God, it's terrifying.
That would have fooled me. Like,
and
there's no way
so
that can be the same
unhealthy.
person.
Like, we consume this day after day, like hours at a time, and we are getting warped to think like, I should look like that. Like, no, you shouldn't. You should look like you.
Yeah.
But yeah, that whole targeting. Oh yeah, actually, what's your experience on that?
So, I mean, I think Kelsey has a little bit of a tender touch when she does that. You know, if I have a client come in and they're like, you know, I had one girl one time say like, I want to look like an Outdoor Voices model, and they're like 5'11", 6 feet tall, and she looks like a cheerleader. She's like, you know, 5'4" and a little bit stockier, right? And I just am like, how are you ever gonna look like that? You're always gonna let yourself down, right? So it's like, why don't you find somebody that has a similar body type, similar look to you, and that you can look to aspire to that, but you know, it's more about you being comfortable in the body that you already have than you thinking that all of a sudden you're going to be a different person if you look like that.
Exactly. I like that. Now, how's the reaction that you get? Like, I can imagine you telling a guy that and he's like, you're right, man. It's just maybe a little more straightforward. We appreciate more. But when you tell it to a woman, do you get the reception you want? Or like, nah, this guy, he doesn't get it?
I mean, I think it depends. Like, if I have enough time with somebody, I think I can eventually get it through to them, even if they're a little hesitant at first. But I also think that, you know, we've been doing this for such a long time that we know the clients that really are going to be attracted to us are going to find us.
Wow.
Right. And so, like, if I have, you know, too much of, you know, a confrontation at first with somebody where they're just like, no. I mean, we'll always give them a chance. Right. Mm-hmm. But I typically already can tell that that's going to be somebody that, you know, starts for a month and then all of a sudden they disappear and I don't see them. Right. It's more the fact that, like, if they start to actually really are receptive and understand and they're coachable, that's one of the biggest things we always look for in a new client. Are they coachable, right?
Maybe it's a good thing. Like, maybe it would be a good thing to ask them why. Like, why do you want to look like this? And, you know, I've never asked that. I've just kind of said, like, you're not going to be another person. It's pretty obvious. But I am actually, if ever I hear this again, I'm going to ask them why. Like, why do you want to look like that? Because you're right. I think it's much deeper. It's not really that you just want to look like that. It's like, why are you so unhappy with what you have going on that you think a completely different body would be a better option?
Well, it's the same idea that if I pay for this or if I buy that or if I look like this, all of a sudden I will be a happy person, right? And it's like, I don't think most of the time that's going to really work, right? It's you digging down deeper and really looking inside to see what are the things that are bothering you and what can actually drive you to be a better person or make you happy the way you want to be.
I think one of the biggest things that I learned in my own journey was you hear it, but it doesn't click until you do it. This really is a lifestyle. It's not a finish line where, okay, I got 3% body fat, I'm good. And no, that's kind of really low anyway.
You never beat the game.
Exactly.
Right?
Like
it's longevity.
It's the infinite game. The point is to keep the game going, because if you try to win like a basketball game, it's over. Well, then what's the next step?
And
it really is.
Yeah, that really feeds into our training philosophy. I mean, that's kind of, if you think of the two of us as a whole, really what we both completely believe in is that we're doing this to give people longevity, right? I like to say independence, because as you get older, you're going to start relying on people if your body's breaking down on you. But if you can, you know, keep your body strong and sharp, you're probably not going to need to rely on anybody. So, you know, basically you're training for your independence later in life, for your freedom.
Now, I want to ask you how this ties into people's busy lives now. The kids, both working and whatnot. But first, I want to ask you, without naming names, can you tell me about some of your best client success stories? How long they've been with you guys and what the transformation was? That's, you know, that's one thing I think is that when someone sees a personal trainer and they say, John Smith, whatever, has been going to them for 4 years and he started out as this and every day or every week and now he looks like this, you know, forget the money part right there. Like, he was determined. And I saw this, wow. It's how long it took him, but to see that this is the result he got from you guys. Yeah. Wow. So
I'm sure you know who I'm going to say.
I think so.
Okay, I'll start then. So I have one client, and she started with me 4.5 years ago. And when she came into the gym, she just wanted to not be afraid of being there, right? She had never been to a gym before. She had never really worked out. Her first goal was literally, she said, my purse falls off my shoulder when I carry it. And I just would like to have like a shoulder enough that a purse stays on it, because she was so internally rotated and kyphotic, right? So that was like her first big goal, was just, I want my handbag to stay on my shoulder. Which you can think of it's such a small goal, but I love to hear those type of things from clients, because it's the stuff that actually really matters in life.
Yeah.
Right? I was able to hold my grandkid, or I was able to pull my own luggage out of the overhead compartment on the airplane. You know, those are the really big things that we love to hear from clients. But so she came in like that. She was really kind of hesitant on everything. She was 1 day a week. She's like, and I was trying to explain to her, like, we need repetition, we need consistency. It's really hard to see a ton of progress 1 day a week, because we're always kind of starting over again, right? Mm-hmm. And so I was like, but let's give it a try. Let's go for it. She started 1 day a week, and she really got into it. And she was just really receptive to it. She was consistent. She's my most consistent client I've ever had. She's missed, I think, 1 session in 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And so she's just there, and she holds herself accountable. And from there, she decided, okay, well, let's give this 2 day a week thing a try. Right. And then she's like, well, let's give this 3 day a week thing a try.
She's telling you this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She's deciding that she wants to do more, because we started focusing on these things. She had never done a push-up before in her life. Right. So as we started doing that, she's like, you know what? I really want to get this. I want to be good at this thing. So I think I need to do it more often. So we started doing that. I mean, fast forward to now, she does EMOMs, which is every minute on the minute workouts, where she's doing 6 to 8 push-ups every minute, along with 12 to 15 kettlebell swings. Right. So it's like, this is this client that was intimidated by even being there. She didn't want to be at a gym. She was afraid. And now whatever client I have coming in after her will watch the end of her session and be like, holy crap. Like, wow. Like, she is incredible. Like, she's a warrior, And it's just amazing to see this transformation she's done. And you can see it in her confidence level. Her posture is better now, right? She stands and holds her head up high. She's confident with all the movements. And the thing that I think made the biggest difference for her is, which is just, I always think is cool, is she always doesn't believe that she can do it, but she'll still give it a try.
Wow.
Right. And so every time she's nervous, like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to do this, but we've been doing it long enough now where I'm like, come on, I know you can, or like, I wouldn't program something that I don't think would be possible for you to be able to do. And she has enough faith and belief in me that she goes, you've never steered me wrong before. So it's like, we just keep building off of that. And I mean, she lifts 2.5 times her body weight in a deadlift.
That's
someone that had never lifted more than a 15-pound dumbbell before. It's like those kind of things I just think are so cool. And now she's interested in other types of movement. Now she's trying animal flow. Now she's trying these other things, because she has that confidence level where she goes, okay, if I'm in control of my own body now, let me go see what I'm capable of doing.
And she's about how old? Just so people can get a reference.
She's middle-aged.
Middle-aged. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to get your opinion on her.
And very successful in her career, and she's ahead of her business, and so it's like, it's kind of cool to also see that she's like a boss at work, and everyone respects her there, and now in the rest of her life, she's now getting that same respect from everything else that she's doing.
The one thing I caught in that whole story that actually stands out is that she came to you saying, my purse on my shoulder, this is what I want to fix. Yeah. And I'm guessing at no time during your time together with her has she ever said, I want to look like fill in the blank.
No.
It's all about what she wants for herself. And that's kind of where it starts, like you were talking about. For your own personal stuff, forget comparing yourself to everybody you see on TV or Instagram. It's like, what do you want for yourself? And how she's been your most successful client, or at least one of the ones that you're thinking about.
Oh, yeah. Now. It's just because it's because of the work ethic and the consistency. Because I think the most important thing is kind of like Kelsey said earlier, you may not be doing it 100% perfectly right? You may not have the perfect program or the best program in the world, but doing anything enough times in a row, you're going to get better at it, right? And that's kind of the biggest thing, is just staying at it, making it a habit, and making it part of your lifestyle.
What are your thoughts on that?
On the success story?
Yes.
I think this is one of the most underrated things about having a coach, because I think like what we think about is our investment and like what's my return on my investment in working with a coach. you have somebody who wholeheartedly believes in you. They are tracking every single thing you do in the gym, and they are calculating what you can accomplish. And you're gonna have a problem. I mean, depending on your personality, you may have a hard time doing that for yourself. Saying like, am I ready to progress? Is it safe for me to progress? Can I lift this weight? You might be going, if you're going into it with hesitance, that's already kind of taking you out of a mindset of the confidence of like, you know, having somebody to believe in you, program for you, say like, yes, you can lift this. And then you do it and you say like, oh shit, I did that. I feel like that is very underrated about having a coach. This is somebody in your corner, like rooting for you in life, in the gym, outside of the gym, all of the above.
Mm-hmm.
That's priceless.
Even coaches have coaches.
Yeah,
Let's just say that.
it's true.
We all need that.
We all need somebody in our lives like that, you know? So even if we're capable of doing that for our clients, we're not always capable of doing it for ourselves. You know, everyone needs someone else there in their corner, rooting them on and encouraging them that they can always do more.
And I'm guessing she motivates a lot. Like you said already, she motivates a lot of the other people who are like, she's been doing this for how long? And
Right.
And especially a lot of my female clients are like, wow, like I can't believe she can do all that stuff. And I'm like, you can too, given enough time.
Do you see the impact in more of the younger clients or the older clients? I mean, older than how she is at her age. Do you see a difference in who's motivated more?
I mean, it's whoever shows up next, honestly. I have male clients, female clients, anybody that sees her is just like, wow, like, you know, I mean, she looks strong and the movements that she's doing are impressive to watch, especially for her size and how much weight she's moving around.
I see that. I could definitely see how men and women might interpret it differently. Like, I think women can get inspired by that, seeing her put the work in, and guys might take the approach of, oh, there's no way I'm losing.
Oh,
no,
she can
I
do
gotta
that.
do, no. I gotta do more than that. I can't. I'm not. And it's funny how it kicks them into
so
gear
true.
when you're like,
it can, and it's interesting too because in a way though it also leaves an easier entry point because they're like, oh well, if she's been able to do that, like wow, like okay, then I should be able to too.
Yeah.
But then you take them in and you start teaching them a kettlebell swing and they have no rhythm, no timing, they're not exploding off of their hips, and they just watched her do 15 in a row that look beautiful. It starts to make them realize like, oh, maybe they don't know everything.
Need help. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
oh, maybe there is some skill to this, and there's going to need some time to actually be able to be coached into doing this properly.
It's funny how like the motivation for guys to get better is like when they see somebody that they're supposed to be better than, oh no, okay, now I'm gonna get in the gym. Now I see where I had to get my ass into gear because I'm doing it wrong.
And that's another misconception is, you know, like, oh, if I'm a man, I have to be stronger than a woman.
Yeah.
Or a woman. You know, there are some really strong chicks out there that no matter how hard you train, you're still not going to be stronger than them.
Exactly. But it's funny how like a lot of guys will take that as the motivation compared to if there's nobody else there or if they're around a bunch of guys and it's like, well, as long as I'm better than him, then I'm good.
Yeah.
But then it changes when you see a woman who's doing better than, like, oh no, I have to get better. Exactly. And it kicks them into gear in the way that maybe it shouldn't, but it's like an instinctual thing where they're like,
still
okay.
Ingrained, yeah.
Exactly. It's still ingrained in there. Who else do you have that's do you have another client who's similar? Long-term client?
I do, yeah. It's so hard for me to choose because I just feel like all my clients are great. But I have a story that came to mind, and it's kind of like close to my heart because I feel like this client had a similar background to me. We met for like our first conversation. You know, what do you want to accomplish? Am I a good fit for you? How can I help you figure out, you know, how to get to these goals? And she wanted to lose weight. She wanted to become healthier because she wanted to start thinking about having kids. And she had come in and she was overweight and she just said like, look, I've tried everything. Here's what I'm not willing to do. Here's what I am willing to do. And my heart just swelled because I was like, yes, we are the perfect fit. Like, I was just like, I'm so happy that you're with me because I respect everything you're saying. I was overweight, like in my adolescence, you know, I've lost like 70, 80 pounds overall before working through really becoming a trainer. And so kind of speaking with her and listening to the things that she wanted to accomplish, I was like, listen, I was there. Like, I did all the fad diets. I tried all the group fitness. I did all of these things that we're told are supposed to get you results. And then you're just like, okay, I'm tired. I'm not eating any food. I'm not seeing anything happen. Like, what's going on? And I think like for, you know, somebody in that position, you start to feel like, is it me? Am I failing? What am I doing wrong? Like, just kind of at the end of your rope, exasperated. And same idea. I mean, she fully trusted that we could create a program that was going to be right, exactly meeting her where she was. And 6 a.m., twice a week. Every single session.
Yes.
She showed up, and there were definitely times, and this is where like the mindset plays in, right? There are times where like we become so discouraged, and it's so easy to say like, oh, this workout didn't feel great, or I didn't do XYZ today. And then you have that coach to tell you like, no, this is the program. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're showing up. We're working hard. And then there's that ripple effect where it goes, you know, if I'm seeing you 2 hours a week, there's a lot of extra time that we need to figure out where you can take care of yourself. And so she started making all these habit changes that we talk about. Let's try and add more water. You know, that's where we started from. Let's try and add some protein to your meals. And she just, I mean, this sounds so cheesy, but like she fell in love with that process. Like you said, it's a lifestyle.
Yes.
It became a lifestyle. I'm like getting chills because like in the beginning, she's kind of like, I am so not into this. I don't want to do the gym thing. I don't want to change my eating habits. And I was never pressed her to. I'm just like, we'll get there. If we get there, that's fine. Like whatever you feel comfortable with. And I mean, just watching her kind of realize like, I feel good. I feel like my body can do things. And she did, you know, she lost, I think 60 or more pounds, and she now has like a beautiful baby that she welcomed into her family this year. And so like, there's all these nice, great, amazing things that have happened. But I think the best part of it is that she looks at this as a lifestyle. I need to take care of myself. And this is how I take care of myself. And it actually doesn't take as much effort as I was even putting in when I wasn't seeing any results happen. It's just that we're focusing your effort on the things that really matter.
That's so 60 pounds in how long?
Oh gosh, how long did we work together? I feel like it took her maybe a year or a year and a half. I was kind of a guess.
That's like 5 pounds almost a month. That's like 15,000. For people to break it down, it's like 3,500 calories or so per pound. That's 15,000 calories that she's taken less in a month. That's incredible.
And that's like, a pound to a pound and a half a week is kind of tops. And she was really pushing herself to like stay within that nice top of the healthy range.
Yeah. And I think too, like it's, you know, when we kind of think about like these weight loss numbers, something that's interesting that like I have personally experienced is that if you have any kind of like food allergies, things causing inflammation, high stress causes inflammation, just unhealthy like oils, if you're eating out all the time, there's this kind of level of inflammation that some of our weight on the scale represents, right? And so like when you see that like really quick drop in weight on a scale, if you start to like diet, partially it's going to be if you're like cutting out carbs and those kinds of things can drop it. But also if you're just cleaning up what you're doing, taking care of yourself, moving more, drinking water, you're going to be able to move a lot more of that inflammation through your system in a way that's healthy. And then we're not holding on to like that inflammatory like water weight type of thing too. And so I think it's just interesting because that plays a big part in what we see on the scale, that it's not always clear what that number represents.
And the reactions that we make right away to seeing that number, right? It's always,
right.
I mean, chances are you didn't gain 5 or 10 pounds on your last vacation.
No,
that
you definitely didn't. Like, it's not possible.
You know, that doesn't happen, right? So it's like,
or like I woke up today and I was
in between
5 pounds
breakfast
heavier.
and lunch. I gained 5 pounds at lunch. I ate a sandwich. No, you didn't gain 5 pounds at lunch.
Exactly, right? And like given on, you know, how much food you've had, water that day, and bowel movements, it can totally fluctuate up and down over the day, right? So it's like, don't be so hooked on that number. But when clients get back from a vacation, especially where they haven't been eating well, they're so upset and so frustrated, like they lost all this progress. And typically kind of what Kelsey's saying is it's typically just inflammation, right? It's just bad food choices or choices that you made that are probably helping you to hold on a lot more water weight than you would like.
It's amazing. Like when we talked about the whole stress thing, I mean, I have people in my life and it gets frustrating because, you know, they are overweight, they know it. And when you talk to them about it, it's, I have this disease, I have this condition, and then I've taken this medication, these hormone replacements, and the doctor. And then, of course, you got to be very delicate how you speak to it.
Totally.
But my observations are, do you work out? Do you go to the gym? Do you take care of yourself? What do you eat? What do I see you eating? And I'm like, I'm not a doctor, so I can't speak to diseases and what actually, maybe genetics and whatnot. But I do know that if you're working as hard as you can to make your body the best it can be, the holistic approach, not just the nutrition and the working out, but like the breathing, you're going to give yourself the best chance to succeed, no matter what that looks like. You know, if you want to have a baby and you're 35 years old, but you're overweight, you know what? The doctors may say, hey, it's not happening because of A, B, and C. But if you're out there in the gym every day, you're working out, you're feeling good, you're eating right, it's amazing how the body tends to fix itself without the help of any of the medications out there. Just that little thing right there.
It's not your fault, but it's your responsibility.
That's a good, yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not you don't have to blame anybody for what's, anything genetic or anything that's happening to you, but it still is your responsibility to try to take care of yourself and fix those.
Yeah. These are the cards that life dealt you with. It sucks sometimes. What are you going to do about it?
And so for those clients, what I usually say is actually, this is even more important for you than even your regular person, right? So if you're not doing this, this is even a bigger issue for you to take care of than someone that is fully healthy. Right? Because it's so important for you to take care of the things you can, control the controllables. So at least if you do these things, you're right, you're giving yourself a much more optimum environment to actually succeed.
Wow. You have any thoughts on that? Do you have a similar viewpoint, experiences with that?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's coming from a place of empowerment versus saying like, I'm just going to have to give in to whatever this is. Because you're right. I think there's this idea in our head that it's like, I have to be able to do an hour at the gym as hard as I can, or what's the point? It's just not true. It's not true. You can start wherever you are. And so, yes, like to speak to medical issues and things like that, definitely will always defer to their doctor, of course. Like I can't override what your doctor's saying. But to your point, moving in a way that's going to feel good and eating things that are healthy for you, it's not going to hurt. There's no way that's going to make it worse, right? And so I think finding that balance where they can start to feel like, okay, I can control the controllables, right? I can remove some of these self-imposed obstacles. Maybe some are very, very real, but some are probably stories you're telling yourself. Sometimes I think people are afraid to let go of the story that I can't get healthier or work out because of XYZ, because if they let go of that story, then they have to do some hard work. And that story is like a little protective barrier that says like, oh, this is my reason. It's a really good reason. And maybe it is, but also can you try breath work? Can you try walking? Can you try, there's stuff you can do from a chair. There's this like very emotional side to working out and moving your body. And if we can move and breathe and sweat, this actually helps us even release some of these like deep emotions that we hold on to, which I think if you're in a position where you're not able to move much or move well, you're going to have a lot of that kind of stagnant emotions and feelings. So this is a way that you can do a lot of things at once. We can totally let go of even having a goal of an aesthetic or of a body weight deadlift, but maybe your goal is like, I'm just going to move around for 20 minutes today. That's a goal. I'm going to move, 3 times this week. I'm going to go out and do something. That's a great goal.
I mean, we hold on to emotional trauma. So the more we can move our bodies around, the more we can actually release that trauma that we're still holding on to.
This is like a way throwback to what you were saying about running, but you said like joking, running away from your problems. The truth is that you were processing what you went through.
Exactly.
You're breathing, you're moving. This releases those kinds of things without having to even cognitively do it. Your body knows how to do it. Moving is like a huge part of our design of how we optimally work for a lot of reasons that are not about the way that you look at all. This is like emotional hygiene, taking care of yourself from the inside first. And that kind of thing that's a huge game changer.
It's like I'm usually suspicious of a lot of the documentaries out there, but then this one here, Heal on Amazon Prime, if you ever get a chance, check it out.
Yeah, I would love to.
It speaks to a lot of what I've personally seen is that even on my own journey, when I got rid of a lot of that stress and a lot of the, here's a funny, well, it's not funny, but I was going to work last week around 5:30 in the morning, and I ride my motorcycle to work just so I don't have to worry about traffic on the way back. I'm getting behind somebody, and again, the freeway's empty. I'm on the number 1 lane, which is the fast lane. I get behind him, and he's going a little slower for the fast lane, so I'm like, okay, I'll just get over in the number 2 lane and then go up and pass him, no big deal. The second I get over, he slams on his brake and then cranks the steering wheel towards me.
Oh,
shoot. Because I could definitely tell he was trying to take me out.
Man.
Exactly. Maybe he just doesn't like motorcyclists or whatever. But yeah, maybe he just thought that I was coming up on him and I was riding the back of his car and I wasn't. I just wanted to get over. But when I saw him make that movement and then get over and then act like nothing actually happened, I was like, wow, that close to actually being killed for me. But then how I handled it was like, you know what? I could sit here and be mad at him. I could say the world is out to get me. I could let it hold me down and just stress out over it. Or I can just say, well, didn't happen, so I'm just moving on with the rest of my life.
Thank you.
Exactly. It's like, that could have been a very bad day. I might not even be sitting here talking to you now, but I'm like, just going to move on with it. Like, what's the point in dwelling on it? And I noticed that when I started making that kind of a change in my life without letting everything just hold me down, like my boss doesn't like me or finances this or the world that, then it made me feel so much better. And like, that's why I think this is a huge thing, because you can't see your stress chemicals in your body. You just know when you feel good or you feel bad, but like just fixing that thing, how it just changes everything. And then when you add into it, working out and eating better, it all just works together. And it's something that I wish more people knew about, just like the holistic side that you're talking about there.
Totally. And it's the narrative that you create, right?
Yes.
I mean, so you create your own narrative. So you can either, decide to stay positive with that and try to keep pushing forward, or you can always just keep, like you said, just getting down into all those negatives.
And like, let's be real, like people face real problems for sure, right? Like there's no doubt about that. But like, this is something actually from a book. I freaking love it. I highly recommend it. It's called The Untethered Soul. There's a portion of this book that I will tell to my clients, like in this kind of scenario, exactly what you're describing. Like you get to decide how that voice talks to you inside of your head. And so from this book, I'll like share with my clients, imagine if the voice inside of your head was your roommate. They're an outside person. They're sitting next to you on the couch. And in this scenario, they'd be like, hey, Mike, remember earlier today? Hey, remember what happened? Hey, wasn't that scary? Hey, aren't you mad at that guy? I mean, you would tell that person, like, would you please stop? Like, please, leave me alone. Yeah, and so it's funny because we don't always do that to the voice inside of our head. We don't realize, like, you are that voice, and you can also be the voice that says, like, actually, I'm going to change my mind and think about something else.
Yeah, that is crazy. And it's one thing that I've noticed, I'm sure you guys have seen it at some point, because we were talking earlier about your guys' future when you want to start a family and whatnot. We live in the Bay Area, especially. The cost of living is so high here that you need two people probably making six figures to even survive. Like in San Mateo County, the neighboring county, I saw this number. It was hard to believe that if you just wanted a single family home, just like a regular old 1960s house in San Mateo County, your household income has to be well over $300,000 just to live in what was like just a basic, middle class life. That's how much money you need. So both people pretty much have to work, unless, one person just maybe has the unicorn startup business and is making multi-million dollars. It's like you both have to work. And trying to find that balance of, if you want to have a child and you both have to work, how does that whole thing actually look? And I see a lot of people taking on a lot of stress from it, because there's the pressure to have children, but then there's also the reality that, you both have to go work. Not one person can't stay home. And if one person does, is that the agreement that you guys actually signed up for? So they're building it up in there, and then they're not taking care of themselves physically, ordering out a lot more because it's easier, more convenient. And it just is this whole cycle here based off of, hey, we want to have a family, but this is what it takes nowadays. It's different than it was 50 or 60 years ago. Do you ever get that sort of feeling from a lot of your clients in terms of what they have to balance in their life and then still try to keep themselves healthy?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've got a client right now that just had his second child in 3 years, and so being a young family, he's trying to still find ways to get it in, and it's not always the easiest. He's one of my virtual clients, so he's actually one of the ones that. He lives close by, but he just doesn't have enough time to get over and back, with the rest of his day and taking care of his kids. So he is able to, FaceTime me. We do an hour session, and then he's on his way and back to doing, his normal stuff.
And you don't have to leave the kids.
And he doesn't have to leave the kids.
Well, look at that.
It's about finding what works for you, I think, and what's going to actually be doable. But I think at the same time, it's just we don't have the option anymore, right? So not only dealing with kids and having the amount of money we have to spend nowadays just to be able to survive in the Bay Area, but also for just most people, the average person, their daily life, they're not getting enough movement in, right? So they're not putting enough stress in the right ways on their body to actually see themselves remain strong, right? So we have people that are starting to just lose bone density, lose muscle mass, lose their power extremely quickly, just because they're not able to ever put enough stress on their body to experience those things. So I think there's many factors at play also, so it's like not only are they not getting enough time because they're having to work always, but then we're also not even keeping our bodies in good enough shape to be able to handle all the other factors that are at play.
But I do see that shift now, even post-COVID. We were talking about earlier about how a lot of people are sticking to virtual because of the whole time thing. I want to go work out, but I don't want to go drive 20 minutes to go to the gym. Or I can't make it to the personal training session at 7 p.m. in the marina because this thing came up. I want to be able to work out, I can get away from the family for like 45 minutes, go into my own special room here, put the TV on, and then get the weights and do what I got to do. And then I can see how it's more of a convenient now, especially with the work from home sort of being if not fully, at least sort of normalized, where you're half at work and you're half at home.
Yeah.
And then they're okay, that's where I'm going to have my workout time.
And for some people that are just having difficulty being consistent, it's a way to really force you. Like, you're at home, I'm gonna FaceTime you. You pretty much have to pick up, right? It's not like you can go, oh, it's gonna be 20 minutes to the gym, it's raining, I don't really want to get in the car right now. Like, all those barriers are taken away when it's like, just answer the phone call and you start, right? So it kind of changes the whole, it's like a paradigm shift on even thinking about all those barriers that are getting in your way. Oh, I gotta get my gym bag, I gotta throw all that stuff, right? It's like all that's taken to the wayside, and it's just like, okay, it's just me and this other person, and I just have, an hour of moving my body, and then I'm back to doing all the stuff that I normally do.
Yeah, I like that you guys were able to pivot so fast and get on that train before everybody else figured out, oh, I guess we're not going back to the gym now. I guess we have to do this virtual thing. So normally in your in-person business, how does that work? Is it a group session? Is it I go to the client's house, they come over here? How does it work in case people are interested?
Our bread and butter is one-on-one clients right now. We're starting to open up some small group training, but we do like keeping it to a smaller amount so that we can really keep a one-on-one eye on you. Form is really important to us, and making sure that people are moving actually correctly is a big thing of our training programs. So we want to make sure that we at least have enough time to be able to spend with each person.
Now, do you have a gym or facility? Where do you go to actually do the sessions at, the in-person ones?
We have a couple locations.
Yeah, so I train in Pack Heights at the Yard, which is on California, and I also train at Synergy down in the Marina, which Kris trains at also. And then we even do some outdoor, like the small group coaching classes we'll do outside as long as the weather's nice. And there's another, you can get workout and get some sun in and get some fresh air, like be outside for the day. There's like a little bit of a draw there too, especially if you're a person that's like, I work from home.
So when you go to like the Yard, for example, does someone have to pay a membership to the Yard and then you charge your own fee, or is it you just walk in and then you get to use the services there while they're working with you? How does that work?
Yeah, so both, or I should say all gyms that we work at, there's no membership fee. It's just the cost of personal training. So regardless, in virtual, outdoor, any gym, it's just our cost of training.
And that price is going to range from trainer to trainer that's working there, basically, based on, level of experience and knowledge and all of that.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So it's like it's a gym, but for personal trainers who bring their clients in there.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. How does that model work? And is that something that's the norm now? So I've heard about it, but I don't know how big of a thing it is.
I think it's starting to get a little more popular. And the guy that runs our gym, he used to be a trainer himself. And then at some point, he didn't want to be doing so many sessions a day. So he decided to open his own gym and then be able to help and promote other trainers that, weren't able to be as successful as he was yet.
And then, so your virtual one, how does that work? Do you FaceTime somebody and say, okay, hey, John, we're working out now, so give me 25? How does that work?
We book them just the way we do any other client. So everybody has typically a reoccurring time because we like to make sure that people are kind of on that same schedule every week.
You know when it's coming.
You always know when it's coming. This is my 3 o'clock, right? And they always know that, okay, at 3 o'clock, that's when so they're even thinking ahead of time. They're making sure they get a meal at the right time. They're making sure they're drinking plenty of water. So it's like having that consistent time on your schedule actually forms even more habits around that session time as well. But then, they log on, they do their workout with us, and then they're back to doing their whatever job they were doing before that.
And if they have like equipment at home already, we'll program around what they have, and then we make recommendations. Like, here's what I think we need to fill in. Band recommendations. Here's the foam roller I need you to have, and we'll just let them know ahead of time. Here's what we're going to use for your sessions. For the at-home stuff, something really easy to just keep, nearby or in whatever room you're going to work out in.
During the pandemic,
it's worked out so great. That's initially
awesome.
It's like you're kind of like, okay, it's a lot more talking than in a gym because I can like use my hands to like tap your shoulders or kind of move you. It's a lot of explaining, but I feel like we've gotten really good at it.
Yeah, when the pandemic started, we had never done a virtual session before. We had always done in-persons, and obviously we had clients that still wanted to train and we couldn't make contact with them. So we decided to give virtuals a shot, and she's right. It was a lot of talking, but I think over time, it just like with the in-person sessions, you just start to really get good at, okay, how do you express things to people? How do you put them in experiences so they still can feel it, even though you're not there to be able to put like your hands on their shoulders?
Yeah, there's so many ways to like set them up in a specific position, or using bands or like a yoga block where they can have that feedback without you being there to manually give them like an external feedback. So that's kind of a cool thing
Yeah.
that I feel like we've even just brought into all sessions, that kind of having that in person taken away, it's strengthened like our communication skills and our coaching skills on the other side of it.
Yeah, I mean, it was really easy in the gym to just be like, okay, you put someone in the right position, you have them do the thing, right? And when you're doing 10 to 12 sessions in a row, like, you're trying to limit the amount of time you have to speak, because you're just going to have to keep talking each session. And yeah, definitely when we did virtuals, it was just explanation after explanation, trying to really get through to people. And I think that's what we discovered, is finding these ways of adding, tension and bands and yoga blocks and other ways really allows them to experience it themselves. So there's less coaching that needs to be done, because they're having that experience in their own body. And so it really kind of gets through to them quicker than you just saying, do this, do this, do this, and they're still not necessarily getting it. Right?
This might be a weird question, but it's going to lead into something else.
Yeah.
So is there music when they're at home, or they're at their personal training session, or it's like you
Typically
just
not. It's typically just our voice. I mean, when we do our outdoor group classes or outside, sometimes we'll have some music going. But we came from a background of a gym where it was supposed to be a clinically controlled environment. So they kept the air at a certain temperature so that it stayed cool all the time. We had fans, we had no mirrors, and we had no music. And the idea is limit distractions. So since you're here to work, let's really use this time as your practice time, and be able to focus on the objective at hand.
So what do you think about like the Rumble model? For those that don't know, Rumble's a gym over here in San Francisco, but it's sort of this blend of like club environment with working out. The idea being is that we're going to pump you up with a DJ, and then you're at the heavy bag like for 5 minutes, whatever, and then you go to the simple weights over here. Do you think that's their own model there? But the idea being that we're going to keep the energy going.
Or like the spin classes that have the DJ.
Exactly, yes.
I'm for the more movement people get in their day, the better. So whatever is going to get them to do that, as long as it's in a safe environment that's going to be effective, let them do whatever they want to do. I mean, and we have clients that train with us, and then they still like to use that as kind of like one of their other outlets. So they'll go we never tell people not to do classes, right? We encourage people, the more days you're moving, the better, as long as you have enough recovery time in between. So one of the things we actually do is, once we get people to understand their 7 foundational movements, the core movement patterns that everybody should really know how to do, I actually always encourage my clients to then go out and start taking some classes. Because then the classes they took before, where they had no idea what they were doing, they had no confidence level, they might have been doing things that were unsafe for them, but they didn't know that. Now they get to come in with kind of these new eyes and be able to go, okay, I know what I'm doing there. Oh, that's stupid. I'm not going to do that, but I'll do this version instead. Or like, I don't need to push myself that hard. Like, I'm going to just keep at a pace where I know I'm going to be able to make it through the whole time. I think is really kind of life-changing for them, because they're able to come in and do it in a totally different way before, and then it makes them want to actually do those classes more often.
Gotcha.
I also think like it is social, right? For people, it can be very social to be part of a community. It's part of like our DNA, part of our design. We want a community. We like desire to have a connection to other people. And so I feel like if this is how you're socializing in your day, or if it feels, like you said, if it feels good and you're moving, and that's what's going to get you to move, because it's fun and it's kind of like you said, a little more maybe a club like mix up with a workout environment. If you're moving, that's awesome. I think it's supplemental for sure. I think the only thing about the group fitness classes is that because of the marketing is great, we're kind of given this idea that maybe we will achieve results no matter what your goals are. Like, I could get stronger or build muscle. Like, you're probably not going to necessarily get stronger and build muscle mass if you're not on a program that's consistently progressing over time. That's the thing with the group fitness. I think that as long as you know why you're doing it and you understand, like, okay, maybe I'm not working on an exact path towards a goal, but I just want to move and it feels nice to be around people, I think that's great. But it just, as long as you don't think like, I'm going to get jacked, but it's like, you're not just doing this only.
And we're social beings. It's very important for us to be in groups of people to experience each other's energies.
And music does change that too, right? Music really affects us. We can totally change our mood. It can change the level of energy that we have. So like, if you can utilize that to your advantage, do it. Like, we all have our workout playlist that we're like, this gets me pumped up, like in the headphones when you work out. So that's real. Like, that's a real thing you can benefit from. Same with, if you like and it pumps you up to be around people, then socializing can do that too.
Totally. And it's a healthier environment than going to a bar, right?
It's true, yeah.
So like, just getting drunk at a bar.
Yeah,
at
maybe
least
that's
you're
the idea.
doing
Like,
something
you want
for
to
you.
have a DJ, but it's a gym and not at a bar, and like you can meet people who have a similar mindset to you. Maybe that's part of it too.
I'm like, well, if they're playing Metallica and Godsmack, then I'm in. 'Cause that gets me going there. I've been to a couple of the Rumble classes, and I'm like, all right, this is not my music, but okay, I have to get into it because everybody else is doing it as well. But I definitely, you're right. It's more of a calorie burner, more of an exciting thing. Maybe the equivalent of like going on a 4 or 5 mile run.
Exactly.
Like it's going to be a lot of where that came from. It's going to be a lot of calorie reburning, and you feel good with it. And as long as you know that this by itself is not going to turn into 6-pack abs with 5% body fat, then you're going to be totally good. But incorporating that into your program where you're actually doing strength training and yoga or whatever the recovery method of your choice is, it can work together with it instead of just relying on one thing.
Yeah, it should all be synergetic and all kind of work together.
Exactly. What are you guys' thoughts on recovery in terms of how you tell people to recover? Is it just simply, okay, take 2 days off, or it's no, you need to do some yoga, you need some massage therapy, acupuncture? What are your thoughts on some of the other?
No, we don't encourage just sitting around. I mean, you need rest time, but there's things you can do. I mean, we always recommend keeping a foam roller by your TV. If you're going to end up watching a show at night or something like that, hop down on that foam roller and just kind of work out some stuff a little bit. Go on a little exploration, see if there's anything you can discover that you weren't feeling before, that you didn't even know was nagging or bothering you. Spending time going on walks. Walking is so important.
Walking is so underrated too. Like, it's
It
very
is huge.
underutilized, and it's great for recovery. It's great for mobility. It's great to just get outside.
Yeah, it's
and
still good
process
to,
some
even if
stress.
you're going to rest a day, it's still good to have blood flow.
Yep.
Right? It's not like just sitting there in a chair all day is going to be the best way your body can recover from whatever you just did, right? So making sure you have non-impact or low-impact ways to still get some movement in that day is going to be a much better way to get all that blood stimulating and flowing.
And I think on the flip side of that too, not every client that we work with knows this. I don't know, like coming from my lens, I have no idea if this is common knowledge or not, but something that we'll explain to our clients is that when you exercise, when you strength train, you're actually breaking your muscle fibers down. This is not where the growth happens in your muscle.
That's not where you get stronger.
It happens when you're resting. And so I think and it always depends on the client, right? If there's somebody who you know is going to be more prone or conditioned to like, I desire to move less, then those are the people where you're like, even on your rest days, we want you to walk, we want you to move. On the other side, there's the people who are like, I need to do a really hard workout every day. Like, my rest day, I'm going to run 5 miles. And you're like, okay, a rest day needs to be, my muscles are recovering. I'm not pushing myself to like that high intense of a level, because that's where the magic happens. And I think, back to our group fitness thing, sometimes this is something that you want to do every day, and it's just too much, and you're just breaking your muscle down if we're never having that recovery time. So I think it's important to like explain both. Rest days are really important. We don't want you to just like not move and just lay on your couch.
Yeah, I think people get caught up in the mindset, if I do this high intensity stuff every day, I'm going to lose all this body fat. So I have to keep going. I have to push myself.
Yeah.
Exactly. But the big thing is also the recovery part. Like even today, yesterday, I ended up doing deadlifts and squats, and I had to sleep longer because I needed more recovery time.
And eat more food and drink more water.
Exactly.
Yes.
And probably a little more time with some mobility, because the legs are a little stiffer than they normally are.
Exactly.
Right? So it's like just focusing on those small things can be so huge in the overall goals someone's trying to accomplish.
And I can tell people, or I do, part of the reason in not having children for me is that I spend a lot more money on my personal health. So I do go to an acupuncture, a chiropractor, massage therapist, because it all works together for me. If I'm in the gym 5-6 days a week, as I get older, I need that recovery in different ways. And living in the city, I got plenty of walking that I do between the hills, up and down.
Yes.
Like I don't drive around here because I can just walk everywhere.
And that's I think a big thing too, is passive versus active, right? Doing these things that go in and have somebody, a body worker or someone working on you is great, right? But there's so much you have to do yourself in order for that really to also work within that whole program, right? I think we talk to clients sometimes that are just starting out that have all these different people in their lives, right? That are doing all these things for them, but it's all passive, right? They're not having to do anything for themselves, and they keep wondering why they're having pain or they're having injuries. There's only so much someone else can do for you, right? Before you kind of have to take the reins and take over and actually do some of the hard stuff for yourself. So I think it works really well all together. But I just always like to make that point that there's so much you have to do for yourself in order to make all that other stuff really matter.
Right. Yeah, it's a whole big package here, and this is like we were talking about earlier. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. The race just keeps going. And how do you have that mindset and switch it from I have to get to this body type now, or I'm getting too old, I have to do it earlier, then just go the progression of life, keep yourself healthy in all these different ways. So very good. Do you guys work with anybody specifically that you recommend for like nutrition health or holistic approach to like holistic medicine? Do you have people you work with?
We have recommendations and physical therapists and that type of thing, body workers that we recommend.
Great. So if somebody comes to you and says, hey, I want to work on my whole progress, you have the network that you can say, hey, this person could be an option for this if you wanted to do that, instead of just we only focus on the program here. It's like, no, it's all encompassing.
Oh, it's a network of people.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think that's a big responsibility as a personal trainer to stay within your scope of practice. Like if you're having some kind of pain, in a certain place, the first thing we'll say, if it's ongoing and it doesn't start to improve with the things that we know how to do, you need to see somebody. Like, I'm not going to lie to you and say, like, we're just going to fix it or we'll just ignore it and push past it. This is like the no pain, no gain.
Yeah.
Right? Like, no, if there's pain, you should chill and figure it out first.
We can do a lot, but we're also not physical therapists, right? We're not chiropractors. So it's like we know that we're really good at certain parts of this, but then we need to find other people that are really good at their specific part too. Right, so that we can all kind of work together with what we are good at. With the first session that we do with every client, we actually run assessments, and we take a look at all these different body positions that they can move in, and we determine if they have pain or not in all these areas. And if they do experience pain, right off the bat, we send them out right away, and we refer them immediately to a doctor or a physical therapist, because we know if they're already experiencing pain in these movement patterns, that's out of our scope of practice.
Right. Wow, this has honestly been a great conversation. Can you believe it's only been 2 hours?
Wow.
Whoa.
It's funny how...
Dude, I feel like we could just talk about this all day.
I know. It's such an exciting step, but I know you have a client that they have to get to, so we'll wrap it up soon. One thing I want to ask you, if people wanted to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do it? And also, are you taking new clients, and how many spots do you have? How does that work?
Yeah, the best way to contact us is through, we have actually, if anyone is interested in reaching out or applying for training, we have a form on our website, which is kkTstrong.com. There's like a little blurb where you can email us, and then there's like a whole long list of questions that you can just fill out and send over. And so that's the best way to contact us. We are always meeting with new clients. If for some reason the timing didn't work out, this is another reason why we might refer to each other. If we're like, hey, we have super similar backgrounds, we believe in the same things. If you need this certain time or that time, we kind of refer back or forth. And then we also have like a great network of trainers in the city. So we never say like we're closed or we're not accepting. Reach out for sure, even if you will just like want to chat or whatever.
And even if it's just to do the first assessments.
Exactly.
I mean, people learn so much in that intro session, right? Because we start going over what the foundational movements are, how you should properly move, how you should properly breathe, right? How to brace and create tension, which a lot of people aren't even aware that when they're working out, they need to actually fill up their diaphragm, right? Get a strong trunk and squeeze and brace while they're doing the movements, not just let the weight pull them down and then somehow struggle to try to get back up, right? So these kind of simple ideas we always like to get through in this first session. So at the very least, even if we don't have the right time open for them, just taking them through that first intro session really can be eye-opening for people.
Gotcha. And is it easy pretty much to work with the client's schedule if they're like, you know what, I work nights, so I have like 1 p.m., 2 p.m. available? Is that something you could work with, or you generally focus on maybe the evening hours? What are your times of day usually?
We're all day.
We're pretty flexible. We're pretty flexible, and that's something that's really great about virtual. Like if all else fails and you're like, there's no way I can be at this gym at that time that all of these times or whatever that you have open, virtual is great because like we pointed out, you don't have to go anywhere. You can just be at home or at another gym or whatever's most convenient and still get this coaching through this program with this focus. I think that's a big difference in this kind of program, is that like actually our goal is to make you self-sufficient in the gym. I don't want you to rely on me. I don't want you to need my programming to be able to go into the gym. I want to teach you how to work out, and you walk into a gym or you walk into your Rumble class or you walk into wherever you're going and you know what to do when you get there. That's what I want for every person that I work with.
They just have this solid foundation that they can go in anywhere and feel confident. while at the same time, if they want to progress and develop more skills, they always know they can come back to us and keep learning more skills. But if that's enough tools in their tool belt for them, great, they can go on and do whatever that they had planned already.
That's great.
So it's a lifestyle, like you said.
Yeah,
right?
it absolutely is.
You have to keep going.
And we're also trying to open more small group classes now, because we're getting much more busy and getting pretty full, that we want to be able to open up some workshop times basically for people to come, at least on the weekends. We're opening some on Saturdays for people to come, get outside, move in a small group, but still get that same experience that they're getting from the one-on-one training. So our small group is not Rumble, it's not it's not one of these other systems, right? We're doing the same thing that we do with our one-on-one clients, just on a small group scale.
Wow, that's exciting stuff. Really fast before I ask you about how you guys find the balance for your own self, because you're both working. Yeah. What are your thoughts on Peloton and the whole idea that it was going to be the next thing that was going to change everybody? You're going to work out, and then it just sort of fizzled out.
I mean, I was going to mention earlier, but I didn't want to name names. But when we were talking about Bowflex and Nordic
Tools
Track,
that
right?
become co-reps.
Yes.
Bowflex and Nordic Track, it's just the next one. And I think that any tool is good, given the right user, right? But I think one of the reasons it attracted so many people, besides how good this tech company, not fitness company, but tech company, was able to push their product, was that everybody's sitting all day anyways. So if you tell somebody that, okay, you've been sitting all day, you're in this stiff position where you're sitting, if I can take you and put you in another seated position, how about that? Now we're calling it exercise, right? So I think for some people, even if they didn't think of it consciously, but even if it was subconscious, it's like, oh, if I'm sitting, now I can just hop on pedal and now keep going along, and now I'm still sitting and doing that same thing.
I think who it works really well for, like if you live somewhere where the weather's just crap, that it could work well for you, right? It's inside. If you don't want a gym membership, you can just have this in your house. Maybe parents that don't want to leave, people who work odd hours and maybe gyms aren't open for you. Like if there's a specific scenario where you're like, this is going to be my best option. I feel like we just like to kind of ask people, like, if ever clients say, should I purchase a Peloton? I just ask them, like, would you like to ride a bike? Would you like to go outside and walk? Is there anything else that you'd rather do? And if the answer is no, then get it. But if there's something else that you'd rather do, because like to your point, having the Peloton's not going to make you use the Peloton.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So like, are you really excited about it and you're enthusiastic about it and you think it's going to be like so great and fun that you look forward to doing it? Or is there something else that you might want to look into?
Or is it just all your friends got one, so you want to get one too? Right?
Yeah.
And it's
if that's your reason and it's really real, then great. But like if it's not, then maybe it's not. I think just like you said, it could be considered like another fad thing that's very popular. It's the Bowflex, it's the elliptical Nordic Track.
I encourage people to get on a bike and go outside.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You can. I mean, here, the weather's great most of the time.
You can find as long as you can find a place to safely bike. Like I think that's a much better option. Also, think about it. That stationary bike is locked in. So now you're not even having to balance anymore either, right? So it's like you're in a seated position. You're not having to stabilize or balance. I mean, I think it's the same type of idea that we were talking about the group classes, right? It's not going to necessarily give you the results that you're looking for, but it's great for supplemental, right? For those other days, for you to, you're stressed out and you just want to get a sweat in, or, you want to just go on a nice, moderate ride, but you're stuck at home and you can't get outside that day. Great. I mean, it's just another tool, right? But for the amount that you spend on one of those things, we could put together a small package of equipment that I think would probably be a lot more effective, and you have a lot more options with that equipment.
Right.
That's awesome. A lot of us don't even think of it that way. They think, oh, okay, this is going to solve all my problems. But then when you open it up and think about it a little more deeply, it's like, actually, maybe it isn't going to do what I'm hoping it does that I never verbalized.
It doesn't have as big a range as you think, right? I mean, you're biking, right? It's not
there's
like
an app now that has workouts, which I can't really speak to because I've never.
It's supposed to be like you get on the bike and then this trainer says, all right, guys, we're going to do this whole workout session. And then it simulates you like you're in the whole group. And that was their whole spiel. And
I mean, I think Kelsey would agree, but you speak for yourself. I think you can accomplish more with one kettlebell than you could ever do with that bike.
That's impressive right there.
But that's also having a huge knowledge base and understanding what you're doing with just this one tool, but the thousands of different things you can do with it, right? So, I mean, I think that's where having a coach and having a trainer to teach you all these different options you have with this other tool.
Yeah, that's true. Like Pelotons are not cheap. I think, honestly, my true review would be maybe give that money to a coach and get a program. I think that
Yeah.
Probably for what your goals are, unless you're like, I want to be a really great cyclist, I want to have a ton of cycling endurance, then like great Peloton, you're hard out.
It's kind of unfair too to start telling our entire civilization basically that the only way you're ever going to get your results is if you spend this much money, right, all at once, and then you'll get your results. Like, it shouldn't be based upon just throwing money at things, right? That's not how you're going to see results.
But it's tempting because it's marketed to you to fix all of
but
your
it's
problems.
The quick, it's the
You'll
quick
be beautiful
fix
and
that
fun
is pushing all those same misnomers that make money.
With food, like superfoods, with anything in the fitness industry, I think it's just important to keep in mind it's all being marketed to you. Like, just take everything with a grain of salt and probably say to yourself, can I be consistent with this and can I make it a habit? Because that's going to be the common denominator of all of those things. Like, having a Peloton in your house is not going to make you healthier, but having a habit to get on it and use it for those workouts will make you healthier. So I think that's an important question to ask yourself. Like, be really honest with yourself, because that's hard to do. Will I use the Peloton?
It's like we talked about earlier, people pay for convenience. So if I pay $1,000, whatever it is for this bike, if it's convenient for me and I get some results, well, maybe in my mind I'm where I want to be at, but it's not really what I thought I wanted. I just can't verbalize it because it's the whole convenience factor.
Yeah, and
it's funny how it works that way.
Just like try stuff, right? You don't always have to commit yourself to one thing. And I think a big thing in the fitness industry is most answers are not a hard yes or a hard no. Right? I think and for everybody out there that's looking at getting a trainer, most of the time your trainer's answer should be it depends, right? Because there's a wide spectrum and it's going to be a little bit different for everybody. So if you're hearing like, no, this is the worst exercise or this is a bad food, right? Most of the time it depends and it's a spectrum. So just make sure you take that with a grain of salt, and there isn't so many things that are just a hard no or a hard yes.
Yeah, I see a lot of people struggle with the whole diet thing. Oh, it's got to be keto. Oh, I got to cut out carbs, or if it fits your macros, all these different programs. And it's like, are you really going to do that the rest of your life like that? Like, it's not sustainable.
Well, and there's
sustainability. That's a key
word. And there's not
right
so many things that are just completely bad, right? But it's moderation.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not like, oh, this is just good or bad. It's like, well, no, let's check the amount, right, that is actually being consumed, or the amount you're doing of this thing. Yes, maybe it's an unhealthy amount, but not necessarily the actual item is the bad thing.
Yeah, unbelievable. Last thing I want to ask you guys, I know you guys have to both get out of here soon. You're going to be future husband and wife,
yes,
and you're also in a business together. How does that work at home? Do you still have the business mindset, or are you able to shut it off and be a fiance and whatnot? Do you ever have that issue come up?
I think there's a fluidity to it, because we will literally go from talking about things we're going to do this weekend immediately into talking about a client, back to talking about what we're going to do for dinner tonight. So it's like, I think it just kind of like, we found a healthy balance through the years, where I know when we first started dating and we were both working together, we would talk about work just completely all the time. Like, our clients were our life. And I think we found a way to create a healthy balance now where, like, we will weave it in every day. I mean, every day we're talking about our clients and sharing our wins and, getting excited for each other about what our clients have been able to accomplish. But we also try to leave enough time so that we can just enjoy ourselves and let that kind of like go to the wayside.
That's awesome. It's definitely a challenge for a lot of people where you're both working, especially when you're in the same business or you both own a company together. It's like, when do you shut off this is the business side and then this is the husband and wife side where, we have to just...
But I mean, we almost can never really fully turn off, because when you see your client, obviously you're with them, but then they're texting you, they're asking you things, they're asking you to reschedule sessions for you, or can I do a different time, or is this thing okay to eat, or like, oh, I was about to take this class, do you have any recommendations or suggestions, right? So I think like we almost rarely completely turn off. So I think it's kind of finding a way to still weave that in while we can still really enjoy time with each other.
Well, that's great, because you both understand what your clients need from you. Instead of let's say you work in tech and then she's doing this, and you may not understand why they text you at 8 in the morning.
And that's, exactly. I mean, I think and we've talked about this before, if we were in any other industry or two totally different industries, I don't think we could fully understand each other the way that we do. Because being a coach and a personal trainer, you spend a lot of hours worried about other people and taking care of other people and making sure other people are okay, and you give a lot of yourself to that, and a lot of just time and effort. And I think it's sometimes hard for especially like when we were dating and stuff, for you know, you to be dating someone else that doesn't understand that, and they're like, well, no, why aren't you done now? You know, or why can't you cut off, or why can't you leave a little early or take a few days off? And you're like, well, if I take those days off, my clients take those days off. You know, so it's hard for anyone to really truly understand what we do besides someone else that's in this industry.
I can't imagine like being with somebody who has like PTO and they're like, oh, we're gonna take 2 weeks. I'm like, what?
Yeah, exactly. Like,
That
oh,
would
we
be
can just
tricky.
shut up and
Honestly,
leave.
yeah, like
Yeah,
I feel really grateful that we have this same, like, not just the same career, but like it's a real, like you said, like it's a real lifestyle and it's a real passion. And so I think it's hard to separate anyway, because it's like, it's our job, it's our hobby, it's our focus, it's the way we live our life. It's a lot of what we do. So I think that understanding is really important. I mean, it connects us in a way that I think is just unspoken, because we have the same kind of view of how we want to be able to take care of ourselves and each other. But you're right, that energetic exchange, it's something I've had to learn over the years being with you and training, is that I really had to learn to like manage how much of this energetic exchange I'm giving to my clients and still have something left over to take care of myself and to be able to like connect with Kris. And it's a balance. It's definitely a balance. I think it takes a lot of practice, and I think it takes like keeping that in your mind intentionally. And I think something that's really helped us, like from beginning years of training to now, is just respecting Kris's free time as much as I respect my own. Not, you know, hey, now that you're not training clients, we need to do X, Y, Z, and you know, this, that. I think it's so important to make sure that like if he's taking a day where he wants to chill on the couch, that I just respect that that's what he's doing right now at this time, and not trying to jump in and say like, okay, now your free time is my free time. You know, like that's an important thing. I think in relationships, no matter what, saying like, great, like that's what you're doing right now, perfect.
It has been a little bit of a juggle too, because Kelsey does more sessions in the morning and I have more like after work clients. So it's like when she's kind of slowing down and getting done, I'm just getting started. So then she wants to like do the rest of the stuff for the day, right? And I'm just getting going on that stuff. And then when I get home, I'm all wound up. So it's like we just kind of had to find and then like respect each other's boundaries on like, okay, well, this is your work day. It's not mine yet. So like we'll take that break. And then when do we both have an hour where we can actually, you know, we're both working so that we can just both focus on this.
And you got one or two huskies?
We got one.
One husky. Yeah. So yeah, he obviously wants a lot of attention too. So
yeah, so that's the thing with our schedules. That just kind of happened because of our personal preference. Like I like being up early. I have more energy in the morning, so I like to see my clients early. And Kris is the opposite. He like gains energy as he goes on through the day. And so yeah, there's always somebody there to be with the dog, which is great. This was like our, you know, we got her at the very beginning at the shelter in place thinking like, oh, we'll have 4 weeks or something before we go back to work. And then, you know, we're still doing this and working at home. Yeah. But it also works out because being in the same field and sometimes working from home and living together, and, you know, we train at the same space sometimes. I think it's also important to have some time apart too. And so that kind of works out, having this, like I have some time when I wake up earlier, and then Kris has some time like as he's up later in the evening. And I feel like that's an important balance, all of it, you know. Yeah. Just like figuring out how you can like respect each other and what the other person needs, and not, I think, demanding too much from that person.
Great. I'm surprised that it's been 2 hours. It doesn't feel like it's been that long.
It really doesn't.
So thank you guys again for coming out. I really appreciate it. And again, I will leave a link in the description on the YouTube channel and on Spotify for anybody who wants to get in touch with you. And again, the best way is through the website, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And are you also on Instagram, Facebook? What else?
Yeah. We are on Instagram. Mm-hmm.
And that handle is?
It's Kris.Kelsey.training. With an underscore at the end, and it's Kris with the K. So don't search for a CHRI.
Kris and Kelsey, both with K.
Oh my God, Kris, Kelsey. Is that what I said? Training. Yes.
Yeah. There we go. I'll find the link. We'll put it down there so everybody can find it that way.
And we train outside of the Marina Green too. So, you know, if anyone listening to this is ever walking by and see us, feel free to stop by and say hi.
By the Marina Green. Yep. Perfect. I'll let them know. Thank you again for coming out.
Fun.
Yeah, this was a great time. Yeah.
And again, thank you for taking time out of your day to come out here and spending 2 hours when you guys could have been taking clients. It means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to the listeners to get a perspective from personal trainers, because like we were talking about earlier, it's so hard if you want to get into fitness to find the right one.
Yeah.
Because is there a dime a dozen, and is this person better for me than that one? Do I go to this one because they have more followers, so that means they're better, or this person looks the way that I want to look, therefore they're better? it's a whole different thing. So I think by people hearing your guys' story and how you think and the holistic approach and expectations, it speaks a lot to what a lot of people actually do want, and then they can relate a lot more to say, that's the kind of person I'm looking for. If not them, maybe I'm out of the area, maybe I'm in San Diego or something, but to know the right questions to ask of a potential personal trainer, it's huge of what your goals are and how you do your program compared to somebody else.
Oh yeah, and I think we just kind of breached the surface on that.
Exactly.
I feel like we could.
There's
just talk
so much
forever.
more I wish
but
I
yes,
could have said.
I mean, we love to share and talk about this.
Exactly.
So
Well,
thank you.
there's always an open invite if you want to come back and do it again. Absolutely, we can
part-
make it
part
happen.
two.
Yes,
Exactly.
Yeah, that would be great.
All right, we'll get you guys out of here. Thank you so much for coming on, everybody. Enjoy the show. Thank you for watching.